A Hells Angels biker, worn to the bone after a grueling 10-day ride, stumbled into a small-town diner. His destination was his critically ill daughter's hospital bedside, hundreds of miles away, but he desperately needed a quick meal to stay on the road. Instead of respite, he found himself trapped in a nightmare. Locals mocked him, hurled insults, and openly accused him of theft. Their malice escalated as they sabotaged his motorcycle, effectively stranding him. Only the diner's courageous young black owner stood against the tide of prejudice, serving him with unyielding respect. Yet, her simple act of kindness sparked the town's fury, turning them against her and leading to the senseless vandalism of her beloved establishment. What she didn't know was that true kindness always finds its way home. Unbeknownst to the small, prejudiced town, a roar was gathering on the distant highways. Nearly 800 bikers, a force to be reckoned with, were on their way. What they would do next would etch itself into the town's memory forever, leaving everyone utterly stunned. Before we dive deeper into this harrowing and ultimately redemptive tale, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so I can keep sharing more special stories with you tomorrow. The distant, familiar rumble of motorcycle engines finally faded as Dylan Carter guided his heavily laden Harley into the gravel driveway. 10 days, 10 long, grinding days on the road, spent alongside his brothers, helping Marcus piece his life back together after that brutal factory accident had nearly claimed his leg. They'd pulled it off, though. The brotherhood always did. Dylan cut the engine, the sudden silence deafening after so many hours of roaring steel. His worn leather jacket, a second skin, clung to his back, thoroughly soaked with sweat and the fine grit of 2,000 miles of highway dust. He swung a weary leg over the seat, his heavy boots crunching loudly on the loose gravel. Daddy's home, Marcus's kid, little Tommy, a blur of boundless energy, maybe 7 years old, came flying out the front door, propelled by sheer joy. The boy crashed into his father's legs, wrapping around them like a small, desperate lifeline. "Easy, champ," Marcus chuckled, ruffling the kid's impossibly soft hair, a wide, genuine grin splitting his face. His wife, Sarah, a vision of relief, stood framed in the doorway, one hand on her hip, the other openly wiping away tears of relief. Dylan watched them, a pang twisting in his gut. The way Tommy looked up at his dad, as if Marcus had personally hung the moon in the sky. The way Sarah's entire face softened, blooming with love, as Marcus limped toward her, his smile crooked but undeniably real. Something tightened in Dylan's own chest, a familiar ache for a life he'd lost. "You okay, brother?" Marcus called over, his voice laced with concern. "Yeah, just tired." Dylan forced a smile, a thin mask over his weariness. "I'm gonna head out. Stay for dinner, at least. Sarah's making pot roast." "Can't. I need to." His phone buzzed, vibrating insistently in his pocket. The sensation felt wrong somehow. Too persistent, too urgent. A discordant note in the quiet afternoon. He pulled it out. "Mom." His stomach plummeted, a lead weight dropping into a dark abyss. "I gotta take this," he mumbled, already stepping away from the intimate family scene, toward the row of bikes parked along the fence. "Hey, Mom. What's?" Her voice, when it came, cracked, breaking like fragile glass. "Dylan." That single, desperate word carried everything. Fear, raw panic, utter desperation. His hand tightened around the phone, knuckles white. "What happened?" he demanded, his own voice suddenly hoarse. "It's Emma. She collapsed at school today. They rushed her to Memorial Hospital and—" A ragged sob tore through the line, a sound that twisted his insides. "They're saying she needs emergency surgery. Something with her appendix." It burst. "Dylan. They need to operate right now." The world tilted on its axis. Dylan instinctively grabbed the rough fence post, clenching it, struggling to keep himself upright, to keep the earth from spinning out from under him. "Dylan, are you there?" His mother's voice was a frantic plea. "I'm coming," he rasped, his voice sounding strange, distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Tell her I'm coming. Tell her. Just get here, please, she begged, tears choking her words. She keeps asking for you. The line went dead, leaving an echoing silence. Dylan stared at the phone, the screen still illuminated. Emma, his daughter, his little girl. The only thing left after Rachel had died 3 years ago in that horrific crash on Highway 9. Emma was all he had. The sole reason he forced himself out of bed every morning. The only motivation to stay clean, stay focused, stay sane. And he wasn't there. Dylan. Marcus limped over, his brow furrowed with concern. What's wrong? It's Emma. Hospital. Emergency. The words came out choppy, broken. Wrong. I got to go. How far? 200 miles. That's 4 hours minimum, brother. You've been riding for 10 days straight. You need rest. I need to see my daughter. Dylan's voice cracked, raw with emotion. He swallowed hard, a painful lump in his throat. Sorry, I got to go. Marcus gripped his shoulder, a silent gesture of solidarity. Then ride safe. Call when you get there. Dylan nodded, unable to speak, his throat constricted. He swung onto his bike, his hands shaking noticeably as he fumbled with the key, turning it. The engine roared to life, a deep, guttural sound that normally soothed him, but now was just a deafening cacophony in his ears. He kicked into gear, the bike lurching forward, and tore out of the driveway, leaving a spray of gravel in his wake. The highway stretched ahead, a seemingly endless ribbon of gray asphalt under the late afternoon sun, shimmering with heat. Dylan twisted the throttle, pushing the speedometer needle higher and higher. 70, 80, 90. His mind couldn't stay quiet. Asterisk, Daddy, you're my superhero. Asterisk, Emma's small, sweet voice echoed in his head, as clear as if she were sitting behind him. That's what she'd said the last time he'd seen her, just 2 weeks ago, before this run with the club. She'd even drawn him another picture. Crude stick figures of him and his bike, her tiny hand clutching his giant one. He'd proudly stuck it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a star. Asterisk, when you coming back, Daddy? Asterisk, soon, baby. Real soon. But he hadn't come back soon. He'd stayed on the road, stayed with his brothers, because that's what you did. You showed up when someone needed you. And now Emma needed him, truly, desperately needed him, and he was 200 agonizing miles away. Dylan's jaw clenched, a muscle throbbing. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out the small, creased photo he always carried. Emma, at 6 years old, with a mischievous gap-toothed smile, proudly holding up a crayon drawing of a motorcycle. The photo was creased down the middle from being folded and unfolded 1,000 times, the edges soft, almost fuzzy from wear. He couldn't look at it properly while riding, not at this speed, not with the blur of tears threatening to overwhelm him. He fumbled with a roll of black electrical tape in his pocket, always kept a roll in his jacket for quick repairs, and with trembling fingers, carefully stuck the photo to his speedometer, right in the center so he could see her face, her innocent, trusting smile, every single time he looked down. Hang on, baby girl, he muttered into the rushing wind, his voice thick with emotion. Daddy's coming. The sun dropped lower, a fiery orb sinking toward the horizon. A spectacular orange light spread across the vast sky, turning the asphalt ahead into a shifting, liquid gold. Dylan didn't slow down. His phone buzzed again. He glanced down at the screen, mounted securely to his handlebars. Asterisk, Mom. They're prepping her for surgery. Where are you? Asterisk, his thumb hovered over the screen. He couldn't type, not at 90 miles per hour. He pressed the voice button. Tell her I'm on my way. 2 hours. The phone buzzed again almost immediately. Asterisk, Mom. She's scared, Dylan. She wants her daddy. Asterisk, the words hit him like a physical fist to the gut. Dylan's vision blurred. A sudden onslaught of tears. He blinked hard, scrubbing at his eyes with the back of his gloved hand. Another memory surfaced, vivid and heartbreakingly clear. Emma at 4 years old, crying inconsolably because she'd scraped her knee, a tiny wound on a tiny leg. He'd picked her up, blown on the cut like it was magic, soothing her. Asterisk there. All better. You fixed it, Daddy. You can fix anything. But he couldn't fix Rachel. Couldn't bring her back. Couldn't take away the nights when Emma woke up screaming, crying for her mama. He couldn't fill that gaping hole in their lives, no matter how hard he tried. He pushed the bike harder, the engine screaming in protest. The highway became a dizzying blur. Small towns flashed by, mere constellations of lights in the growing darkness. Dylan's hands ached, cramped from gripping the handlebars for so long. His back screamed in protest from 10 days of relentless riding. His eyes burned, raw from the wind and the crushing exhaustion. None of it mattered. He glanced at Emma's photo, taped to his speedometer. Even in the dim light from the dashboard, he could see her smile. That pure, innocent, believing smile that said she trusted him completely. Believed he could do anything. Save anyone. Be her superhero. Asterisk, don't let me down, Daddy. Asterisk, he imagined her saying it. A silent plea. Asterisk, you promised you'd always be there. I'm trying, baby, he whispered into the wind, his voice cracking. I'm trying. The sky transformed, bleeding from orange to deep purple, then finally to an inky blackness. Stars appeared overhead, cold and impossibly distant, indifferent to his plight. Dylan rode on through the suffocating darkness, chasing the white line down the center of the road, racing against time, against fate, against the terrible, gut-wrenching possibility that he might be too late. His phone buzzed one more time, a desperate cry from his mother. He didn't look at it. He just rode faster. But 3 hours later, his body, pushed beyond its limits, had other plans. Dylan's stomach twisted violently. Not from nerves this time, but from a profound, debilitating hunger. The last thing he'd eaten was a stale gas station sandwich a full 12 hours ago. His hands trembled on the handlebars, a dangerous tremor. Not good. He needed fuel, rail fuel, or he'd pass out before reaching Emma. A diner appeared ahead, a beacon in the oppressive darkness, its neon sign flickering erratically against the black sky. Mama's Kitchen. Small town. Population 3,000. According to the weathered sign he'd blown past a mile back. Dylan slowed, the powerful engine grumbling in protest, and pulled into the gravel parking lot. 6 cars, a beat-up pickup truck, all local plates. He cut the engine. A sudden, jarring silence crashed over him, his ears ringing faintly from hours of wind and motor noise. Through the diner's wide, brightly lit windows, he could see families, couples sharing quiet conversations, a boisterous group of teenagers crammed into a corner booth. Normal people living normal lives. Dylan looked down at himself. His worn leather vest, emblazoned with the unmistakable Hell's Angels patch. Boots caked in road dust and grime. 3 days of coarse stubble roughening his jaw. He smelled, distinctly, of gasoline and sweat and the open road. He pulled out his phone. Another message from Mom. Asterisk, they're taking her in now. Surgery starting in 20 minutes. Asterisk, his chest tightened painfully, a cold knot of dread. 20 minutes. He was still 90 miles away. 2 hours minimum, even pushing the bike to its absolute limit. But if he didn't eat something, anything, he wouldn't make it at all. Dylan pocketed the phone, took a deep, fortifying breath, and pushed through the diner's front door. The little bell above the door chimed, a surprisingly cheerful sound. Every single conversation in the diner stopped. Just stopped. Dylan froze in the doorway, suddenly keenly aware of his imposing presence. 20 pairs of eyes, all of them wide and unblinking, locked onto him. A woman at a nearby table instinctively pulled her young daughter closer. The gaggle of teenagers in the corner booth went utterly silent, staring with a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. An old man at the counter, mid-bite of his pie, turned his entire body around to get a better, more unobstructed look. The only sound left in the room was the low, comforting sizzle of something cooking on the griddle behind the counter. Hi, Dylan managed, his voice coming out rougher, more guttural than he intended. Just need some food to go. Nobody answered. A young black woman emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a clean white apron. Mid-20s, perhaps. Her hair pulled back neatly in a tight bun. Her name tag, pinned crisply to her apron, read Shanice. Her eyes met Dylan's. For a fleeting second, something flickered there, surprise, perhaps a hint of caution. But then her face smoothed into a professional, welcoming smile. "Welcome to Mama's kitchen," she said, her voice carrying a surprising warmth that felt utterly impossible given the icy silence in the room. "Take any seat you'd like. I don't need to sit. Just something quick. A sandwich, whatever. I insist." Shanice gestured toward an empty booth in the corner, her smile unwavering. "You look like you've been on the road a while. Sit down. I'll get you taken care of." Dylan glanced around the diner again. The stares hadn't let up. If anything, they'd intensified, hardening into open disapproval. Maybe I should just leave. But Emma's face, taped to his speedometer, flashed in his mind, smiling, trusting. He needed to eat. He needed fuel for her. "Please." Something in Shanice's tone, though still polite, made it clear this wasn't really a request. Dylan nodded, resigned, and walked toward the corner booth. His heavy boots thudded against the linoleum floor, each step feeling like it echoed in the cavernous silence. He slid into the booth, the vinyl cracking faintly under his weight. He tried to make himself smaller somehow, less noticeable, but it didn't work. "Shanice," a woman's voice, sharp and loud, cut through the quiet. "What are you doing?" Shanice turned slowly to face a middle-aged woman in a floral dress, sitting 3 booths over. "I'm serving a customer, Mrs. Patterson. Same as always." "That's not a customer. That's a—" Mrs. Patterson's lip curled in disgust. "Look at him. He's one of those bikers. Hell's Angels." "So?" Shanice's smile never wavered, but Dylan heard an unmistakable note of steel underneath her calm demeanor. "So we don't want his kind here." The woman stood up, her husband grabbing at her arm, a look of desperate embarrassment on his face. She shook him off with an angry flick of her wrist. "Tom, don't. Someone needs to say it," she declared, her voice ringing with self-righteous indignation. One of the teenagers snickered. "Dude looks like he crawled out of a dumpster." His friends erupted in hushed laughter and agreement. A father at the counter stood abruptly, pulling his 2 small kids toward the door. "Come on, we're leaving." "But Dad, I didn't finish my—" The bell above the door chimed as they left. Then again, as another family, clearly uncomfortable, hurried out. Dylan's hands clenched into tight fists under the table. He should leave. He should get back on his bike and find food somewhere else. Anywhere else. But Emma's face, taped to his speedometer, smiling, trusting him completely, flashed in his mind. He needed to eat. He needed fuel for her. Shanice appeared at his table, notepad in hand, her expression unruffled. "Don't mind them," she said, her voice low and kind. "What can I get you? Look, I don't want trouble. And you won't get any trouble. Not here." She tapped her pen against the pad, a small, reassuring rhythm. "Now, a hungry man like you probably needs a real meal. How about the meatloaf special? Comes with mashed potatoes, green beans, and cornbread." Dylan's stomach growled so loud he was sure half the diner heard it. That sounds good, but I need it fast. I'm trying to get to." "I'll tell Miguel to rush it." Shanice scribbled quickly on her pad. "Coffee while you wait? Please." She started to turn, then paused, meeting his gaze. "My mama used to say something. Every person who walks through that door deserves respect until they prove otherwise. Have you proved otherwise yet?" Dylan shook his head. "Then you're good with me." She headed toward the kitchen. "Shanice," Mrs. Patterson's voice cracked like a whip, sharp and cutting. "I'm serious. If you serve him, we're filing a complaint with the owner." Shanice stopped, turned slowly, her posture radiating quiet defiance. "I am the owner, Mrs. Patterson. This was my mama's place, and now it's mine, and I'll serve whoever I damn well please." The cursed word, delivered with icy calm, landed like a bomb in the suddenly quiet diner. Mrs. Patterson's face flushed a deep, indignant red. Well, I never. That's pretty clear, ma'am. Shanice's smile was gone now, replaced by an expression of cold resolve. Your meal's on the house. Have a blessed evening. She disappeared into the kitchen. The diner erupted in a sudden flurry of whispers. Dylan caught fragments. Asterisk. Can't believe she's so dangerous. Probably has weapons. My tax dollars supporting this place. Asterisk. An old man near the window, who had remained, slammed his cane against the floor, the sharp crack making everyone jump. This is exactly what's wrong with the world. His voice shook with age and raw anger. Used to be we had standards. Used to be we knew who belonged and who didn't. He pointed the cane, a trembling, accusing finger, directly at Dylan. And we sure as hell knew better than to let trash like that sit where decent folks eat. Dylan's jaw clenched, his hands curling into tight, white-knuckled fists under the table. Asterisk. Don't react. Don't give them what they want. Emma, think about Emma. Shanice came back out, carrying a steaming coffee pot and a clean mug. She set the mug in front of Dylan, filling it with steady, unhurried hands. Cream and sugar? Black's fine. Food will be out in 10 minutes. Thank you. Dylan wrapped his hands around the mug. The warmth felt good, grounding him slightly in the chaos. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did. Shanice met his eyes, a silent challenge in her gaze. Mama taught me right from wrong. This? She gestured vaguely around the diner, encompassing the glares and whispers. This is wrong. You sitting here peacefully wanting a meal? That's not. One of the teenagers, emboldened by the recent drama, stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is. I'm not eating in the same place as some Hell's Angel scumbag. His friends followed him out, laughing and shoving each other, their bravado growing as they reached the door. The bell chimed again and again. Within 5 minutes, half the diner had cleared out. The families, the teenagers, even Mrs. Patterson and her husband, though she made sure to slam the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Dylan stared into his coffee, a bitter taste in his mouth that wasn't from the drink. I'm sorry. I'm costing you business. Don't be. Shanice refilled his cup, even though he'd barely touched it. Any customer who walks out because I served you, they can stay gone. The old man with the cane was still there, glaring furiously. A young couple remained in the corner, whispering to each other and shooting nervous glances Dylan's way, and one man at the counter kept eating his pie, seemingly oblivious, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. The kitchen door swung open. A middle-aged Hispanic man poked his head out. Miguel, probably. Shanice, you okay? I'm fine, Miguel. How's that meatloaf coming? 5 minutes. Dylan checked his phone. Still no new messages. That could be good or it could be terribly bad. Either the surgery was going fine or... He couldn't think about the or. The door chimed again. Dylan looked up, bracing himself, expecting more customers to leave. He picked up his fork, a flicker of hope that he could finally just get some food and get back on the road. Get to Emma. But the door didn't just chime. It burst open. Mrs. Patterson stormed in, her face twisted with fury, a terrifying mask of righteous indignation. Her husband shuffled reluctantly behind her, looking profoundly uncomfortable, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. There he is. She marched straight toward Dylan's booth, her finger pointed like a weapon, trembling with accusation. I knew it. I knew something was wrong. Dylan slowly set down his fork, the metal clinking softly against the plate. Ma'am, I don't. My wallet's gone. Her voice shook the diner, a shrill, outraged shriek. I just got to my car and realized it's missing. And you? She jabbed her finger, nearly touching his chest. You're the only one who could have taken it. I haven't moved from this booth. Dylan kept his voice steady, calm, a stark contrast to her hysteria. I didn't touch your wallet. Liar. Thief. Mrs. Patterson's face flushed a deep, alarming red. Tom, call the police right now. Her husband pulled out his phone, clearly reluctant. Honey. Maybe you just misplaced. Call them. Shanice rushed over from the counter, positioning herself between Mrs. Patterson and Dylan. Mrs. Patterson, please. He's been sitting right here in plain sight. I've been watching him the whole time. He didn't take anything. Of course you'd defend him. Mrs. Patterson whirled on her, her eyes blazing. You let this criminal in here. You served him. This is your fault. He's not a criminal. He's a customer who... He's a biker. Hell's Angels. They're all criminals. Mrs. Patterson's voice rose to a shriek, echoing off the diner walls. Look at him. Just look at him. Of course, he stole my wallet. Dylan's jaw clenched, a muscle throbbing painfully. He forced himself to stay seated. Stay calm. Don't react. Think about Emma. Only Emma. Police are on their way, Tom Patterson said quietly, pocketing his phone, his face a mask of weary resignation. Ma'am, this is unnecessary. Shanice positioned herself more firmly between Mrs. Patterson and Dylan, her stance protective. If you'll just calm down and check your purse again. Don't tell me to calm down. My wallet had $300 in it. My credit cards. My driver's license. Mrs. Patterson's hand shook as she pointed accusingly at Dylan. He probably already handed it off to one of his biker friends outside. There's nobody outside, Miguel said, coming out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron, his voice calm. Just his motorcycle. Then he hid it. Search him. Search his pockets. Dylan stood slowly, deliberately, his hands visible, held slightly away from his body. You want to search me? Fine. Go ahead. Don't you touch me. Mrs. Patterson stumbled backward, her fear briefly overriding her anger. Tom, how long until the police get here? She demanded, regaining her composure. They said 5 minutes. The wait felt endless. Mrs. Patterson paced back and forth, muttering darkly about criminals and bikers and how unsafe everything was getting. Her husband sat hunched at a table near the door, his head in his hands, clearly mortified. Shanice stood beside Dylan's booth, arms crossed, her expression a mixture of anger and weariness. This is ridiculous, she murmured to Dylan. It's fine, Dylan said quietly, his voice raspy. I'm used to it. Well, you shouldn't be. Dylan checked his phone. Still no new messages. But time kept ticking away. Every minute stuck here was a minute he wasn't on the road. A minute further from Emma. His leg bounced nervously under the table. Come on. Come on. 6 minutes later, the door opened, and 2 police officers walked in. One was older, perhaps 50, with a thick mustache and a gut that spilled slightly over his belt. The younger one was lean, sharp-featured, with cold blue eyes that scanned the diner, locking onto Dylan immediately. Someone called about a theft? The older officer's voice was tired, flat, like he dealt with this kind of petty drama 1,000 times a day. Yes, him. Mrs. Patterson rushed forward, pointing dramatically at Dylan. He stole my wallet. I left here 15 minutes ago, got to my car, and realized it was gone. He's the only one who could have taken it. The younger officer's hand moved almost imperceptibly to rest on his belt, near his weapon. His eyes remained fixed on Dylan, on the leather vest, the telltale Hell's Angels patch. Dylan saw the officer's jaw tighten. Sir, can you step away from the booth, please? The younger officer's voice was clipped, professional, but undeniably cold. I didn't take anything. Dylan moved slowly, deliberately, his hands visible, palms open. I've been sitting here the whole time. Just step away from the booth. Dylan complied. The older officer moved closer, his eyes sweeping over Dylan's appearance. The leather, the boots, the 3 days of stubble that made him look rougher than usual. Ma'am, when did you last see your wallet? The older officer turned to Mrs. Patterson, his tone weary but firm. I had it when I paid for my meal. I remember putting it back in my purse. And you've checked your purse thoroughly? Of course, I checked my purse. It's not there. The officer turned back to Dylan. Sir, I'm going to need you to empty your pockets. Place everything on the table. Dylan reached into his pocket, slowly, deliberately. He pulled out his wallet, his keys, his phone, the roll of black electrical tape, some loose change, a crumpled receipt. He spread it all on the table. Emma's bright, smiling face looked up from his phone's lock screen. The younger officer stepped forward, picking through the items methodically. He opened Dylan's wallet, flipped through it, checking the cards, all clearly in Dylan's name. He counted the cash, $23. No wallet belonging to Mrs. Patterson. Check his jacket, Mrs. Patterson demanded, her voice rising again. He probably hid it in there. The older officer gestured. Sir, the jacket. Dylan shrugged off his heavy leather vest, handed it over. The officer patted it down methodically, checking every pocket inside and out. Nothing. His motorcycle. You need to check his motorcycle. Mrs. Patterson shrieked, refusing to give up. The younger officer's jaw tightened. Ma'am, we can't search his vehicle without probable cause or consent. Probable cause? He's a Hell's Angel. Isn't that enough? No, ma'am. That's not how it works. Mrs. Patterson's face went from red to a terrifying shade of purple. This is unbelievable. He stole my wallet and you're just gonna let him walk out of here? The older cop held up a hand, his patience clearly wearing thin. Ma'am, we haven't found any evidence of theft. Now, are you absolutely certain you had your wallet when you left this establishment? Yes. And you've checked your entire purse, not just the main compartment? I know where I keep my wallet. I don't need to check my whole. Check your purse. Not a request. Mrs. Patterson huffed, but grudgingly opened her purse, digging through it, roughly shoving things aside. Lipstick, tissues, old receipts. See? Nothing. It's not here. He took it. Check under your booth, Miguel said from behind the counter, his voice calm and helpful. Sometimes things fall out and slide under the seat. Mrs. Patterson glared at him. That's ridiculous. Just check, ma'am. The older officer's voice had gone flat, the last vestiges of his patience gone. Mrs. Patterson stomped over to the booth where she'd been sitting, bent down with an exaggerated sigh. Her husband got on his knees beside her, helping her search. There's nothing here. This is a complete waste of... She stopped abruptly, her hand reaching further under the seat. When she stood up, slowly, her eyes wide, she was holding a brown leather wallet. The diner went dead silent. Mrs. Patterson stared at the wallet in her hand. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, but no words came out. The older officer's thick mustache twitched. Is that your wallet, ma'am? He asked, his voice dangerously calm. Yes, but I don't understand how. She clutched it to her chest, her face now a sickening shade of pale. It must have fallen when I stood up. I didn't realize. So your wallet wasn't stolen? Well, no, but I thought, given the circumstances, someone who looks like that. She gestured vaguely at Dylan, a last desperate attempt to shift the blame. The younger officer's eyes narrowed, his previous coldness hardening into something like disgust. Ma'am, do you understand? You just filed a false police report. Her face crumpled. I didn't mean to. It was an honest mistake. You accused this man of theft. Had us respond to a call. Wasted departmental resources. The older cop's voice had gone hard, his weariness replaced by stern authority. We could charge you for this. But I really thought he took it. Anyone would think the same thing. Just look at him. That's enough. The officer cut her off, his voice like a whip crack. Get out of here before I change my mind about those charges. Mrs. Patterson grabbed her husband's arm and hurried toward the door, her dignity utterly shattered. As she passed Dylan, she muttered under her breath, a final venomous hiss. Still looks suspicious to me. The door slammed shut with a resounding bang. The older cop turned to Dylan, his expression softening slightly. You're free to go, sir. Sorry for the inconvenience. Dylan nodded, unable to speak, his throat tight with a mixture of adrenaline, relief, and simmering rage. His hands shook uncontrollably as he gathered his belongings from the table. The younger officer was already heading out, The older one paused at the door, glancing back at Dylan. "And sir, drive safe. Whatever you're rushing to get there in one piece." Then he was gone. The diner was silent, an oppressive, heavy quiet broken only by the low hum of the refrigerator and the gentle whir of the soda fountain. Dylan sat down hard in the booth, the vinyl sighing under his weight. His whole body trembled, a violent tremor that shook him from head to toe. Adrenaline, relief, suppressed rage. All of it hitting him at once, a wave crashing over his exhausted form. Shanice slid into the opposite side of the booth, seat across from him. "You okay?" "No." Dylan's voice came out raw, a rasp of exhaustion and fear. "I need to go. I need to get to my daughter." "I know, but your food's cold now." Shanice stood, her movements brisk but gentle. "Miguel's making you a fresh plate. You'll eat, then you'll go." "I don't have time." The words were a plea, a desperate protest against the ticking clock. "You'll make time." Her voice was soft, yet unwavering, a quiet force. "You can't ride if you pass out from hunger." She saw the tremor in his hands, the faint blur at the edges of his vision. He was running on fumes, a dangerous fuel for a long ride. 5 more minutes. That's all. Dylan wanted to argue, to push back against her calm resolve. But she was right. His body was screaming in protest, a deeper, more primal alarm than the urgency in his mind. He swallowed hard and nodded. Shanice squeezed his shoulder, a silent promise. "You're almost there. Just hold on a little longer." 5 minutes later, Miguel reappeared, a fresh plate steaming in his hands. The meatloaf was thick, fragrant with herbs, and the mashed potatoes glistened with melted butter, a small pool forming in their center. The rich, savory scent should have made Dylan's mouth water, but his stomach was a tight knot of anxiety. He picked up his fork anyway, a dull, heavy instrument in his trembling hand, and began to eat mechanically, chewing, swallowing, tasting nothing but the metallic tang of his own fear. The diner was eerily quiet now. The only sounds the clink of Dylan's fork against the plate and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Empty tables stretched out around them, silent witnesses to the chaos that had transpired earlier. The bell over the door hadn't chimed in over 20 minutes. No new customers had dared to venture in. The last few diners, wide-eyed and hushed, had slipped out during the tense confrontation with the police, leaving their money in crumpled bills on their tables as if fleeing a crime scene. Shanice moved gracefully between the booths, clearing plates, wiping down tables with practiced, efficient movements. Yet, Dylan could see the subtle rigidity in her shoulders, the slight tension that betrayed her composure. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice barely a whisper in the echoing space. Shanice looked up from the table she was cleaning, her gaze direct. "For what? This? All of this?" Dylan gestured vaguely around the empty diner, the scene of the recent skirmish. "I cost you your customers, your business." A fresh wave of guilt washed over him. She carried a stack of dirty dishes toward the kitchen, her back straight. "You didn't do anything. They made their choice. That's on them, not you." Her tone was firm, absolving him of blame he desperately wanted to claim. Miguel emerged from the kitchen, untying his apron. "I'm going to take the trash out back, then head home, if that's okay." "Shanice, my daughter's got a school thing tomorrow morning." "Go ahead. Thanks for staying, Miguel." Shanice offered a small, tired smile. "No problem." Miguel glanced at Dylan, a flicker of genuine concern in his eyes. "You take care, man. Hope your kid's okay." Dylan just nodded, a painful lump in his throat making speech impossible. The back door closed, the soft click echoing in the stillness. Then it was just Dylan and Shanice. She poured herself a cup of coffee, the aroma a warm comfort in the cool diner, and sat down across from him again. "You don't have to rush. Finish your food." "I should go." But despite the urgency, Dylan took another bite, then another. His body, starved and weary, craved the fuel, even as his mind screamed at him to move, to fly, to somehow conjure himself 2 hours away. "How old is she?" Shanice asked, her voice soft, inviting. a gentle probe into his guarded world. Your daughter. Dylan swallowed the mouthful of meatloaf. 7. Almost 8. Her birthday's next month. What's her name? Emma. Just saying her name, hearing it spoken aloud, made his chest tighten. A familiar ache. Emma Grace Carter. That's a beautiful name. Dylan pulled out his phone, turned it so Shanice could see the lock screen. Emma. Captured in a school photo. Front teeth missing. A huge, joyful gap-toothed smile lighting up her whole face. Shanice's face softened instantly, a warmth spreading across her features. Oh, she's precious. Look at that smile. She's everything. Dylan's voice cracked, raw with emotion. She's all I've got left. Shanice took a slow sip of her coffee, her gaze steady, waiting. The words spilled out. A torrent he couldn't stop. A dam bursting after years of containment. My wife died 3 years ago. Car accident on Highway 9. Drunk driver crossed the median, hit her head-on. He stared at Emma's photo, the innocent face a sharp contrast to the tragedy. She was on her way home from her sister's house. Emma was with me that day. She was only 4, too young to really understand why Mama wasn't coming home. He closed his eyes briefly, the memory a fresh wound. I'm so sorry. Shanice's voice was a whisper of shared pain. It's been just the two of us since then. Me and Emma against the world, you know. Dylan set his phone down, rubbing his temples. I try. God, I try so hard to be a good dad, to be there for her. But sometimes the club needs me and I have to go. And she says she understands. His voice broke, a raw sob tearing through him. She's 7. She shouldn't have to understand. He buried his face in his hands, the weight of his guilt and helplessness crushing him. Shanice reached across the table, her hand gently covering his. You got the call and you came. You're riding through the night to get to her. That's what matters. I'm 2 hours away. She's in surgery right now and I'm 2 hours away eating meatloaf. Dylan pulled his hand back, pressing his palms against his eyes, as if to physically block out the image of his daughter in pain. Far from him. What kind of father does that make me? The human kind. Shanice's voice was gentle, filled with a quiet understanding. You needed fuel. You can't help her if you collapse from exhaustion halfway there. Dylan dropped his hands, his gaze distant. Everyone looks at me and sees a criminal. Hell's Angels, right? We're all thugs, all dangerous. But I'm just a dad trying to raise his daughter, right? Trying to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. The club, they're my family, my brothers. They help when things get tight. They're good people, most of them. But nobody sees that. They just see the patch and they've already decided who I am. He looked up, a plea for understanding in his weary eyes. I see you. Shanice leaned forward, her eyes unwavering. And you know what I see? A father who's scared out of his mind for his little girl. A man who's been on the road for 10 days straight and won't stop until he gets to that hospital. That's not a criminal. That's a good man. Dylan's eyes burned. The unexpected kindness a sharp contrast to the contempt he usually faced. He blinked hard, trying to hold back the tears. You don't know me. I know enough. Shanice stood, heading behind the counter with a purposeful stride. She came back with a small paper bag, crinkled and warm. Here. What's this? Dessert. 2 slices of my mama's pecan pie. One for you, one for Emma when she's feeling better. Shanice smiled, a genuine, comforting warmth radiating from her. Kids love sweet things after hospital food. Dylan took the bag, his hands shaking slightly with emotion. I can't. You've already done so much. I haven't done anything special. Just treated you like a human being. That shouldn't be special. But she trailed off, her gaze drifting to the silent kitchen. My mama ran this place for 30 years. You know what she used to say? Shanice, every person who walks through that door has a story, has a life, has people they love. Don't you ever forget that. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. Shanice's eyes went distant, lost in memory. Lost her 2 years ago. Cancer. Some days I swear I can still hear her voice in the kitchen telling me I'm using too much salt. She laughed softly, a melancholic sound. This place is all I have left of her. These recipes, these tables, this? She gestured around the empty diner. The quiet, hallowed space. Her legacy. I guess she'd be proud of you. Dylan meant it, every word resonating with profound gratitude. What you did tonight, standing up for me like that took guts. Shanice shrugged, a small, humble gesture. Just did what was right. Mama taught me that too. Dylan finished the last bite of his meatloaf, the food finally bringing a measure of strength to his weary body. He drained his coffee, its warmth a welcome comfort, and checked his phone. Still no messages. The surgery had been going for over an hour now, a terrifying eternity. He stood up, pulling out his wallet. Don't even think about it. Shanice waved him off, a dismissive flick of her wrist. Meals on the house. I need to pay you something. His insistence was almost a plea, a need to repay the unexpected kindness. You don't need to pay me anything. Just, she paused, her gaze softening. Just get to your daughter. Be there when she wakes up. That's payment enough. Dylan's throat tightened again, the lump of emotion almost choking him. Thank you. For everything. For the food, for defending me, for treating me like a person. You are a person. A good one. Shanice walked him to the door, her presence a steady anchor. And Dylan, when Emma's better, when she's out of that hospital, you bring her back here. I want to meet the little girl who has such a good daddy. Dylan couldn't speak, overwhelmed by her generosity, by the glimmer of hope she offered. He just nodded, a silent promise. Shanice opened the door for him, the cool night air instantly rushing in. Now go. Ride safe. And text me when you get there so I know you made it. Okay? My number's on the receipt in that bag. Dylan walked across the diner parking lot toward his bike, the cool night air a welcome balm after the emotional tension inside. He pulled out his keys, the familiar weight in his hand, ready to get back on the road, to bridge the distance between him and Emma. Then he saw it. The rear tire, flat, completely deflated, a sad, crumpled circle of rubber against the asphalt. What the hell? Dylan crouched down, a cold dread seeping into his bones. Even in the dim, scattered light of the parking lot, he could see the problem clearly. The valve stem had been deliberately loosened, and there, a deep, jagged scratch along the engine casing, glinting malevolently, that hadn't been there before. Someone had messed with his bike. He popped open the engine cover, his stomach sinking further into the pit of despair. Spark plug wires pulled loose, the oil cap missing, and worse, a fine layer of sand or dirt, a gritty contaminant, dumped into the oil reservoir. This was sabotage, deliberate, malicious. Someone from the diner, someone he'd been inside with, someone who had watched Shanice defend him, had slipped out and systematically destroyed his only means of transport. Dylan's hands began to shake, not from fear, but from a pure, burning rage that threatened to consume him whole. He felt a primal scream building in his chest. But rage wouldn't fix the bike. Rage wouldn't get him to Emma. He checked his phone. 10:43 p.m. The surgery had been going for over an hour. He still had 90 miles to cover, and his bike was dead, a monument to petty cruelty. Dylan stood up, forcing himself to take a deep, shuddering breath. Think. Don't panic. Think. He needed a mechanic. Now. He turned and walked back into the diner. Shanice was wiping down the last table, humming softly to herself, a quiet melody in the empty space. She looked up, her brow furrowing. Forget something? My bike. Dylan's voice came out flat, controlled, a thin veneer over the inferno inside. Someone sabotaged it. I need a mechanic. Is there anyone nearby who's still open? Shanice's face fell, the last vestiges of her peace dissolving into immediate concern. Oh no, are you serious? Dead serious. Tires flat. Engine compromised. I need help. She grabbed her phone, scrolling through contacts with frantic urgency. Try Benson's Auto Repair. 3 blocks down on Main Street. Can't miss it, big red sign. Bill Benson owns it. He sometimes works late. She showed him the address on the screen. Tell him I sent you. Thank you. Dylan went back outside. The bike was too damaged to ride. Even if he could somehow fix the tire, the engine problems meant he'd have to push it. He grabbed the handlebars, the sheer weight of the 700-pound machine a dead drag against his exhausted body. His shoulders screamed in protest immediately, a sharp, searing pain, but he pushed. 3 blocks down Main Street. The town was quiet, the streets largely deserted. A few cars passed, their headlights momentarily illuminating his struggle. None stopped. Some slowed down, their occupants peering out, undoubtedly curious about the biker in a Hell's Angels vest pushing a broken motorcycle down the street at this late hour. He could almost hear their thoughts, the instant judgments. Benson's auto repair finally appeared on the right, a big red sign glowing faintly, just as Shanice had described. 2 garage bays, lights on in one of them. Asterisk thank God. Asterisk Dylan pushed the bike up the driveway, his muscles screaming. A man in grease-stained coveralls, 50-something with graying hair and thick, muscular forearms, was working under the hood of a pickup truck. Excuse me? Dylan called out, his voice hoarse. Are you Bill Benson? The man straightened up, turning around. His eyes went immediately to Dylan's vest, to the dreaded patch, and his expression hardened, closing off. We're closed. Please, I just need. Someone sabotaged my bike. My daughter's in the hospital. Emergency surgery. I need to get to her. The words tumbled out, desperate and raw. I said we're closed. Bill wiped his hands on a rag, pointedly avoiding Dylan's gaze. Shanice sent me. From Mama's kitchen. She said, I don't care who sent you. Bill's voice went cold, chillingly dismissive. I don't work on bikes for Hell's Angels. Not during business hours. Definitely not after hours. I'll pay you whatever you want. Double. Triple. Dylan reached for his wallet, desperate. It's not about money. Bill walked toward a workbench, deliberately putting more distance between them. It's about principle. I don't do business with criminals. I'm not a criminal. I'm just a father trying to get to his daughter. The words were a plea for common humanity, but they fell on deaf ears. You wear that patch. You're all the same to me. Bill picked up a wrench, turning it over in his hands, a subtle, almost threat in the gesture. Now get your bike off my property before I call the police. Dylan's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching. He stood there for a moment, wanting to argue, to scream, to make this man understand, to break through the wall of prejudice. But he'd heard that tone before, that finality, the unwavering, hateful certainty. He grabbed his bike and pushed it back onto the street, the humiliating rejection burning in his chest. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out with shaking hands, his heart pounding. It was his mom. Asterisk mom's surgery going longer than expected. She's fighting. Where are you? Dylan typed back with a single thumb, the words clunky and slow. Asterisk bike problems. Coming as fast as I can. Asterisk he pulled up the map on his phone, searching desperately for another repair shop. Jackson's garage, 4 blocks away. Dylan pushed, the weight of the bike a crushing burden. His arms burned, his back ached, and sweat dripped into his eyes despite the cool night air. Every muscle screamed in protest, but Emma's face, her missing tooth smile, flashed in his mind, propelling him forward. Jackson's garage was smaller, a single bay in an older, weathered building. A man was pulling down the corrugated garage door when Dylan arrived, the metal groaning loudly. Wait, please. Dylan called out, his voice raw. I need help. The man turned, a figure in his 60s, thin, with a deeply weathered face. His eyes, sharp and wary, immediately found the Hell's Angels patch on Dylan's vest, and he visibly recoiled, taking a defensive step back. We don't serve bikers here. His voice was thin but firm. Please just listen. I said no. The man's voice shook slightly, a tremor of old pain or anger. My son got mixed up with a motorcycle gang 10 years ago, ended up dead in a ditch. So no, I won't help you. I won't help any of you. I'm sorry about your son, but I didn't. Get away from my shop. The man's voice cracked, raw with grief and bitterness. Get away before I call the cops. He yanked the garage door down with a final, echoing crash and disappeared inside. The lock clicked, a sound of absolute closure. Then the lights went out, plunging Dylan back into darkness. He stood there, alone in the sudden, oppressive silence. His arms shook uncontrollably, his legs felt weak, threatening to give out beneath him. He wanted to collapse right there on the cold pavement, to just lie down and surrender to the crushing exhaustion and despair. But Emma was waiting. He checked his phone again. 11:15 p.m. So much time lost. He found one more shop on the map. Morgan's Repair. 6 blocks down at the very edge of town. Dylan grabbed the handlebars, the metal cold and unyielding in his numb hands, and pushed. One last hope. The street grew quieter, darker. Fewer streetlights flickered overhead, and the houses spread further apart, swallowed by the encroaching darkness of the countryside. His phone buzzed again, a fresh jolt of terror. His mom. Mom complications. Doctors say it's serious. Please hurry. Dylan's vision blurred, tears stinging his eyes. He blinked hard, pushing past the pain, the fear, the growing sense of desperation. Complications. Serious. His baby girl. Morgan's Repair finally appeared in the gloom. But it was dark. Completely dark. Closed. A handwritten sign on the chain-link fence confirmed it. Open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Dylan rattled the gate anyway. A futile, desperate attempt. Hello? Anyone here? Nothing. Only the hollow echo of his own voice. He pulled out his phone again, fingers fumbling, frantically searching for any repair shop, any mechanic, anyone who might be open. The map showed nothing else in this town. Nothing. Dylan sank against the chain-link fence, the heavy motorcycle leaning beside him, a dead weight. His whole body shook from exhaustion, from fear, from a cold, paralyzing desperation. He'd failed. He couldn't get to Emma, couldn't be there when she needed him most, just like he hadn't been there when Rachel died. Always too late, always failing the people he loved. The thought was a bitter, searing brand. A sound cut through his despair. An engine. Not his, but another, rumbling close by. Dylan looked up, hope a tiny, fragile spark in the darkness. At the very end of the street, barely visible beyond the last few dim streetlights, was a small building. A single golden light spilled from its window, a beacon in the oppressive night. A hand-painted sign, faded and worn, read, Foster's Garage. It hadn't shown up on his map. Too small, perhaps too old for modern GPS. But the light was on. Dylan grabbed his bike, a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. One last try, one last chance. The building was tiny, more of a ramshackle shed than a proper garage. Tools lay scattered haphazardly on a workbench. An old car sat up on blocks outside, and dark oil stains patterned the concrete floor. And there, bent over a lawnmower engine, humming softly to himself, was a kid. A black kid, maybe 14, in coveralls that were clearly too big for him, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Dylan pushed his bike into the pool of light, the sudden intrusion breaking the kid's concentration. The kid looked up. For a moment, they just stared at each other, Dylan in his Hell's Angels vest, utterly exhausted and desperate. The kid with a wrench in his hand, a look of pure surprise on his face. Then the kid smiled. Man, your bike looks rough. What happened? Dylan's voice cracked, raw with relief and lingering fear. Someone sabotaged it. I need help. I need to get to my daughter. The kid stood up, wiping his greasy hands on his oversized coveralls. Let me take a look. Just like that. No hesitation, no judgment, no fear. Dylan felt something break inside his chest. A dam of pent-up emotion. Relief, fierce and overwhelming. Hope, fragile but persistent. Gratitude, so profound it brought tears to his eyes. You're not. Dylan's voice faltered, unable to form the question. You're not afraid of me? The kid looked at him, really looked at him, his gaze clear and unflinching. Then he shrugged. My mama always says anyone can need help. Doesn't matter what they look like or where they come from. He walked over to the bike, already assessing the damage. I'm Caleb, by the way. Caleb Foster. Dylan finally found his voice, extending a hand that still trembled slightly. Dylan Carter. Caleb examined the bike with an experienced eye, circling it slowly, his brow furrowed in concentration. Okay, this is definitely sabotage, but I can fix it. Probably take me 30, 40 minutes. Dylan's knees almost gave out beneath him. You can fix it? Sure can. Caleb grinned, a flash of bright, youthful confidence. Bikes are easier than cars anyway. Now let's get her into the garage before I lose my light. And just like that, in the darkest moment, with a sabotaged bike and a dying daughter 90 miles away, Dylan Carter found an angel. A 14-year-old kid named Caleb Foster, who saw a man who needed help and decided to help him. Caleb pushed the heavy motorcycle into the small garage with surprising strength for his size. Dylan followed, still half expecting this to be some kind of trick, some cruel joke the universe was playing on him. But Caleb just grabbed a rolling stool and positioned himself next to the bike, already examining the extent of the damage with focused intensity. So someone really did a number on this, huh? Caleb whistled low, a sound of genuine disbelief. Loosened your valve stem, messed with your spark plugs, dumped something in your oil. That's personal, man. What did you do to make someone that mad? I walked into a diner. Dylan's voice came out bitter, laced with a weary sarcasm. That's all. Just wanted some food. Caleb looked up at him, really looked at him again. His eyes moved from the Hell's Angels patch to Dylan's worn, tired face, reading something there that went beyond the surface. Yeah, I get that. Caleb turned back to the bike, his hands already probing the engine. People see what they want to see. Doesn't matter what's true. Dylan watched as the kid's hands moved over the engine with an astonishing confidence, checking connections, testing components, like he'd been doing this his whole life. How old are you? Dylan asked, a strange mix of awe and wonder in his voice. 14. 15 next month. Caleb pulled out a rag, started wiping oil off the engine parts with practiced ease. Been working on engines since I was 8. My dad taught me before he passed. I'm sorry. It's okay. Was 6 years ago. Caleb's hands never stopped moving, a blur of efficiency. Mama works 2 jobs now. I run the garage after school weekends, helps pay the bills. Dylan felt something twist in his chest. This kid, 14 years old, running a business, helping his mother, and still finding it in himself to help a stranger everyone else had turned away. It was humbling, profoundly so. You're not scared of me? Dylan asked quietly, the question still lingering, unspoken. Because of the patch? Caleb paused, looked up with a slight, knowing smile. Should I be? Most people think so. Most people are stupid. Caleb went back to work, his movements precise. My mama says you judge people by what they do, not how they look. So far, all you've done is ask for help getting to your daughter. That don't sound scary to me. Dylan had to look away, the simple truth of Caleb's words hitting him with an unexpected force. His eyes burned again, but this time not from anger or frustration, but from a profound, raw gratitude. So, what's wrong with your daughter? Caleb asked, his voice casual as he worked, the question gentle and unburdening. If you don't mind me asking. Emergency surgery. Her appendix burst. She's only 7. Caleb's hand stilled for a moment, a rare pause in his rhythmic work. Man, that's rough. My cousin had that last year. Scary stuff. But he came through fine. Doctors know what they're doing. I hope so. Dylan's voice cracked, the raw anxiety still bubbling beneath the surface. I really hope so. How far you got to go? 90 miles. Caleb whistled again, a low sound of surprise. And you've been pushing this bike how far already? I don't know. A mile. Maybe 2. Dylan felt the ache in his arms, the burning in his shoulders, a testament to the distance. 2 miles, man. Caleb shook his head, but he was smiling, a look of genuine admiration on his face. "You must really love your little girl. She's everything." Dylan pulled out his phone again, showed Caleb the lock screen Emma's gap-toothed smile. Caleb looked at the photo, and his whole face softened, a warmth spreading through his features. "She's cute. Looks like a fighter." "She is. Then she'll make it." Caleb said it with such certainty, such simple, unwavering faith, that Dylan almost believed him, the heavy weight in his chest lightening just a fraction. "Now let me fix your bike so you can get to her." Dylan watched as Caleb worked. The kid's movements were quick but precise, his focus absolute. He talked while he worked, a steady stream of commentary that was somehow comforting, a soothing presence amidst Dylan's raging internal storm. "Okay, so first we gotta clean out all this crap they dumped in your oil. That's gonna take a few minutes. Good news is they didn't actually damage the engine, just contaminated it." "Amateurs." Caleb grinned, a flash of triumph. If they really knew what they were doing, they would have scored the cylinder walls. That would have been expensive. "How do you know all this?" Dylan asked, genuinely impressed. "YouTube mostly, and trial and error. Lots of error at first." Caleb laughed, a light, carefree sound. "Blew up a lawn-mower engine when I was 10. Mama was so mad, but I learned." "Your mama raised a good kid. She raised a smart one. Jury's still out on good. But..." Caleb shrugged, still smiling. Dylan's phone buzzed, a jarring intrusion. He grabbed it immediately, his heart leaping into his throat. His mom. Mom, out of surgery. "Doctor wants to talk to you. Call me." Dylan's hands shook so badly he almost dropped the phone. He hit the call button, his thumb clumsy with adrenaline. His mother answered on the first ring, her voice tight with exhaustion and relief. "Dylan, I'm here. What did the doctor say? Is she?" "She made it through surgery, but Dylan, it was close. The infection spread more than they thought. They had to remove part of her intestine. She's in ICU now, still critical." Dylan's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the cold concrete floor, the impact barely registering. "But she's alive?" His voice barely worked, a fragile whisper of hope. "She's alive. She's fighting. She's fighting. But Dylan, you need to get here. She keeps asking for you. Even sedated. She keeps saying, 'Daddy.' The nurses say it might help if you're here when she wakes up." "I'm coming. My bike broke down, but I found someone to fix it. I'll be there. Tell her I'm coming. Hurry." The line went dead. Dylan sat there on the cold concrete, phone in his shaking hands. She was alive. Emma was alive but critical. Still critical. "Hey man, you okay?" Caleb's voice cut through the fog of Dylan's terror and relief. Dylan looked up. The kid was watching him, concern etched on his young face. "She made it through surgery, but she's in ICU. Critical condition." "Then we better get you moving." Caleb turned back to the bike, his focus renewed, his movements quickening with a sense of urgent purpose. "Good news is I'm almost done with the oil. Just need to reconnect your spark plugs, fix your tire, and you're golden." Dylan watched as Caleb's hands flew over the engine, reconnecting wires, tightening connections with astonishing speed. The kid moved like he'd done this 1,000 times. "The tire is going to be tricky," Caleb muttered, a slight frown on his face. "I don't have a replacement that'll fit this bike, but I can patch it good enough to get you 90 miles. Won't be pretty, but it'll hold. That's all I need." Caleb grabbed a tire repair kit from a shelf, a box of specialized tools, and started working on the flat tire with the same confidence he'd shown with the engine. "So," Caleb said as he worked, his tone conversational, "you got any other kids or just your daughter?" "Just Emma. Her mother, my wife, died 3 years ago." "Man, I'm sorry." Caleb's hands kept moving, his expression sympathetic. "That's tough, raising a kid alone." "It is. But she's worth it. Every hard day, every struggle. She's worth all of it. She's lucky to have you." Caleb looked up briefly, his gaze direct. Not every dad would ride through the night, push a broken bike 2 miles just to get to his kid. Any father would. Dylan said, a reflexive defense. "Nah." Caleb's voice went quiet, a subtle shift in his tone. Some fathers wouldn't. Trust me. Dylan heard something in those words, a hint of old pain, a private hurt that made his chest ache for the kid. But before he could ask, Caleb brightened up again, his focus returning to the task at hand. Okay, moment of truth. Caleb stood up, grabbed an air compressor from a corner. Let's see if this patch holds. The tire inflated slowly, the hiss of air filling the small garage. Caleb watched it carefully, checking for leaks, his brow furrowed in concentration. Looking good. Looking good. He grinned, a wide, triumphant smile. Okay, she's holding. Now let's test this engine. Caleb swung onto the bike, his feet barely touching the ground, and turned the key. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life, a deep, throaty rumble that vibrated through the small garage. The sound was beautiful, the most beautiful sound Dylan had heard all night. Caleb revved it a few times, listening carefully, his ear attuned to every thrum and purr. Sounds good. Sounds real good. He killed the engine and hopped off. You're all set, man. She'll get you 90 miles, no problem. Dylan stood up, his whole body weak with a sudden, overwhelming relief. How much do I owe you? Nothing. What? You don't owe me nothing. Caleb wiped his hands on his coveralls, his gaze firm. Just get to your daughter. That's payment enough. Kid, why? You just spent almost an hour fixing my bike. Let me pay you something. You can pay me by making it to that hospital in time. Caleb's voice was unyielding, filled with a quiet strength that belied his age. By being there. When your little girl wakes up. By giving her a hug for me. Okay? Caleb's voice was soft, resonating with a kindness that twisted a knot in Dylan's gut. Dylan's throat closed up, thick with emotion. He swallowed hard, but no words would come. He couldn't speak past the lump. Besides, Caleb added, a genuine grin spreading across his face, lighting up the dim garage. You look like you're having a bad enough night already. I'm not going to make it worse by charging you. Despite the refusal, Dylan instinctively pulled out his worn leather wallet. He extracted every single dollar he possessed, a paltry stack of bills totaling $23, and held it out, his hand trembling slightly. It's not much, but please keep it. Caleb, with a gentle firmness, pushed Dylan's hand away. Nah, you take that, Mr. Dylan. Buy your daughter something nice when she gets out of the hospital. Some flowers, a big bar of chocolate, or whatever little girls like these days. Dylan stared at him, dumbfounded. I don't know how to thank you. Caleb simply shrugged, his smile unwavering. Don't thank me. Just ride safe. Okay. Dylan could only nod, his gaze fixed on the young man. Caleb's smile was so utterly bright, a pure beacon in the late hour, cutting through the grime of the garage and the weight of Dylan's despair. It was a smile born of true generosity, despite the hours of hard, unpaid labor, despite the rundown shop, despite everything that might have made another kid bitter. And hey, Caleb called out as Dylan started to turn. When your daughter asks you what happened tonight, you tell her Caleb Foster fixed your bike. I want her to know there are still good people in the world. That was it. Dylan couldn't hold back the dam any longer. A hot rush of tears welled up, blurring Caleb's face, and streamed down his cheeks. He swiped at them quickly, embarrassed, but more came, burning trails on his stubbled skin. You okay, Mr. Dylan? Caleb asked, his voice now laced with concern. Yeah. Dylan's voice was a rough, broken whisper, shaking with the force of his raw emotion. Yeah, I'm okay. You're a good kid, Caleb. Your mama raised you right. Caleb chuckled, a sound surprisingly light and carefree. I know. She reminds me every day. Dylan finally managed to turn, his legs feeling heavy, and walk toward his bike. He swung onto the familiar seat, the weight of the machine settling around him like a comforting embrace. This was his anchor. He turned the key, and the engine, newly revived, purred to life, a low, contented rumble beneath him. Hey, Mr. Dylan, Caleb called out again, his voice carrying clearly in the quiet night. Dylan looked back one last time. Your bike's hungry, man. Stop and get gas in about 50 miles. Okay? Tank's reading kind of low. I will. And Mr. Dillon, Caleb added, his voice dropping to a softer, more earnest tone. Your daughter's going to be fine. I can feel it. Dillon nodded, unable to trust himself to speak, his throat still tight. He kicked the bike into gear, the clutch engaging smoothly, and pulled out of the small, battered garage, leaving the warmth of Caleb's kindness behind. As he turned onto the deserted street, he glanced back. Caleb stood framed in the doorway, a skinny, almost childlike figure at 14, dwarfed by coveralls far too big for him, waving. He stood in that rundown garage at midnight, smiling like he'd just won the lottery, a small, vibrant splash of humanity against the darkness. Dillon raised his hand in a wave, a silent promise, then twisted the throttle. The engine roared, a fierce, hungry sound, and he shot into the night. 85 miles to go. The speedometer needle began its climb, steadily ticking upward. 70, 80, 90. Emma's photo, still taped precariously to the dashboard, caught the faint glow of the instrument lights. Daddy's coming, baby girl, Dillon whispered, his voice ripped away by the wind. Daddy's almost there, and for the first time all night, truly, deeply, he believed it. He was going to make it. The highway stretched ahead, an endless ribbon of asphalt unspooling beneath the full moon, looking like a dark, swift river carrying him toward his destiny. Dillon pushed the bike harder than he'd ever dared, the machine responding with a desperate surge of power. The speedometer needle climbed past 90, past 100. The wind tore at his face, an icy claw that whipped tears from his eyes, but he didn't slow down. He squeezed his eyes tight for a split second, then opened them wide again, determined. Asterisk Emma. 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 Asterisk her name was a frantic drumbeat in his chest, a primal rhythm, a desperate prayer, a sacred promise. The miles blurred together, indistinguishable streaks of darkness and light. Small towns materialized out of the gloom and vanished just as quickly, mere flashes of neon streetlights, anonymous gas stations, generic strip malls, empty parking lots. All of it was meaningless, irrelevant. All of it just fleeting obstacles between him and his daughter. Dillon's phone, mounted securely to the handlebars, glowed with the GPS display, the numbers counting down his remaining distance. 80 miles, 75, 70. His mother hadn't texted again. He didn't know if that was a good sign or a bad one. If she was simply too busy at the hospital, or if something had taken a turn for the worse. He pushed the thought away. The bike, miraculously, handled perfectly. Caleb had done good work, better than good. The engine ran with a smooth, powerful hum, the patch tire holding steady and true, even at this insane speed. Asterisk that kid. That amazing, incredible kid. Asterisk Dillon's eyes burned. A raw, stinging sensation. From the wind, he told himself. Asterisk just from the wind. The highway cut through vast stretches of farmland, dark, silent fields on either side, stretching to the horizon. The moon, full and low, cast an eerie, silvery light across everything, transforming the mundane into something almost ethereal. In different circumstances, it might have been beautiful, but Dillon barely registered it. He saw Emma's face instead, projected onto the darkness before him. Her gap-toothed smile, wide and innocent. The sweet way she called him daddy with that faint lisp she still hadn't quite grown out of. The absolute, unshakable trust in her eyes when she climbed into his lap, burying her face in his chest when she was scared, believing completely that he could make everything okay. Asterisk, you're my superhero, daddy. But he hadn't been there. He hadn't been there when she collapsed at school. Hadn't been there when the ambulance lights flashed. Hadn't been there when they rushed her into surgery. He was always too late. Always too far away. Dillon's hands tightened on the handlebars, his knuckles white. Asterisk not this time. Not tonight. He'd make it this time. 60 miles. 55. A car appeared ahead, a slow-moving sedan doing perhaps 60 in the right lane. Dillon blew past it like it was standing still, a mere blur in his peripheral vision. The driver honked, a belated, indignant protest, but Dylan didn't care. His phone buzzed urgently. He risked a glance at the screen. A new text from his mother. Asterisk Mom? Where are you? Asterisk Dylan couldn't text back. Not at this speed. He'd have to pull over. And pulling over meant losing time. Losing precious seconds, maybe minutes. And Emma, fragile and fighting, might not have minutes to spare. He pushed the bike harder. The engine screaming in protest but holding firm. 105, 110. The whole bike vibrated violently beneath him. A living, breathing machine pushed to its absolute limit, but it held together. Caleb's repairs held. Asterisk thank God for that kid. 50 miles. 45. Dylan's back ached. A deep, throbbing pain from hunching over the handlebars for hours. His hands were numb. A dull ache radiating from gripping the throttle so tightly. His eyes felt like sandpaper, raw and gritty from the wind and the sheer exhaustion and the tears he stubbornly wouldn't let fall. None of it mattered. Asterisk Emma mattered. Only Emma. Highway signs began to appear, showing the city name, then directions to his destination. Asterisk Memorial Hospital. 38 me. Then 32 me. Then 25. Asterisk so close. He was so agonizingly close. Dylan's phone buzzed again. Then again. Then again. A rapid-fire succession of messages. He didn't look. Couldn't look. Had to focus on the road, on the rapidly approaching city lights, on getting there. 20 miles. 15. The highway widened. Lanes multiplying, and more cars appeared. Late-night traffic, surprisingly heavy. Dylan weaved between them. A dangerous dance, using every gap, every opening he could find. A semi-truck blared its horn as he shot past. Someone yelled something incoherent out their car window. Dylan didn't hear it, didn't care. 10 miles. The city lights appeared on the horizon. A luminous glow against the dark sky, growing larger and brighter with every mile. Asterisk civilization. Help. The hospital. Emma. Asterisk Dylan's heart hammered in his chest. A frantic, desperate rhythm. His breath came fast and shallow, ragged in his lungs. Asterisk almost there. Almost there. 5 miles. The highway became an expressway, signs flashing past in a blur. Dylan followed the GPS directions like a lifeline, each turn a step closer to salvation. Asterisk exit 23B. Merge right. Follow signs for Memorial Hospital. 3 miles. Asterisk the bike's engine had been screaming for what felt like 50 miles straight. A tortured wail. Dylan could smell the acrid scent of hot oil and strained metal emanating from it. Could feel the deep, shuddering strain in every part of the machine. Asterisk just a little further. Just hold together a little longer. 2 miles. Hospital district. The buildings began to change, growing larger, cleaner, more imposing medical centers, sprawling parking garages, and then, gloriously, the familiar blue H sign, pointing the way. 1 mile. Dylan took the exit too fast. The bike leaning hard into the turn, tires protesting loudly. The patch tire held, but barely, skidding for a heart-stopping second. Memorial Hospital loomed ahead. A massive, stark white building, 10 stories tall, lit up like a beacon in the night. Asterisk emergency entrance on the right. Main entrance straight ahead. Asterisk Dylan aimed for the main entrance, pulling into the parking lot at an utterly reckless speed. Cars were parked in neat, orderly rows, a few tired-looking people walking between the building and their vehicles. He didn't slow down enough, didn't care about proper parking etiquette. He saw the brightly lit entrance, the automatic doors, the welcoming light spilling out onto the pavement. Dylan aimed for the closest parking spot, a designated motorcycle space right near the entrance, and hit the brakes hard. Too hard. The back tire skidded violently, the bike slewing sideways, a sickening lurch. For a terrifying second, Dylan thought he'd lose it, thought he'd dump the bike right there in the parking lot after coming all this way, after everything. But then the tires caught, gripping the asphalt. The bike stopped, jarringly, inches from a parked car. Dylan killed the engine. The sudden, profound silence crashed over him. an almost physical weight after hours of roaring wind and engine noise. His ears rang with the ghost of the sound. He swung off the bike, his legs almost giving out from under him, stiff and cramped from hours of riding. His whole body screamed in protest, every muscle aching. But he didn't care. He didn't feel it. Dylan ran toward the entrance, his boots thudding a frantic rhythm against the pavement. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. The hospital lobby was blindingly bright, too bright, fluorescent lights assaulting his eyes after hours in the dark. A reception desk stood straight ahead, elevators to the right, a waiting area to the left with uncomfortable-looking chairs. Dylan sprinted to the reception desk. A young woman in scrubs looked up, startled, her eyes wide at his sudden, disheveled appearance. "Emma Carter," Dylan gasped, breathless, clutching at the counter. "My daughter, Emma Carter. She just had emergency surgery. Where is she?" The woman's eyes widened further, taking in his wild appearance. The leather vest, the telltale Hell's Angels patch, his bloodshot, desperate eyes, the 3 days of dark stubble covering his face. Her hand moved almost imperceptibly toward something under the desk. A panic button. Maybe. "Sir, I need you to calm down." "I am calm." Dylan wasn't calm. He was anything but calm. A raw nerve vibrating with fear and adrenaline. "My daughter, Emma Grace Carter, 7 years old, appendix surgery. Where is she?" The woman typed something quickly, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Let me check. What's the last name again?" "Carter. Arter. Emma Grace Carter." More rapid typing. Slowly, the woman's face changed, the initial fear receding, replaced by a flicker of sympathy. "She's in ICU, 4th floor." "But sir, visiting hours are." Dylan was already running toward the elevators, ignoring her. "Sir, you need to sign in, sir," she called after him, her voice tinged with exasperation. He didn't stop, couldn't stop. He slammed the elevator button 5 times, 6 times, 7. The doors opened immediately, as if by magic. Empty. Dylan lunged inside, jabbing the button for the 4th floor with a frantic intensity. The doors closed with agonizing slowness, sealing him in. Then the elevator began its slow, steady ascent. Dylan's reflection stared back at him from the polished metal walls. A wild, disheveled man. Eyes bloodshot and haunted, face pale and drawn, jacket wrinkled and dirty. He looked exactly like the kind of person security should stop at the door. He didn't care. The elevator chimed. Asterisk 2nd floor. Asterisk 3rd floor. Asterisk Dylan bounced on the balls of his feet, an unbearable impatience gnawing at him. Come on, come on. Asterisk 4th floor. Asterisk the doors hissed open. ICU ward. It was quiet, a hushed reverence hanging in the air, dimly lit. A nurse's station directly ahead, a bastion of calm. Rooms lined both sides of a long corridor. The sterile smell of antiseptic and industrial cleaner pricked at his nose. Dylan stepped out. A nurse at the station looked up. She was an older woman, perhaps in her 50s, with kind, tired eyes that instantly hardened when she saw him. "Excuse me, you can't be up here. This is ICU. Family only, and visiting hours are." "I'm family." Dylan's voice was rough but firm. "Dylan Carter. My daughter Emma Carter. Where is she?" The nurse's expression softened, a flash of recognition, maybe even relief, crossing her features. "Mr. Carter, your mother said you were coming. We didn't know when." She stood up, her movement sufficient. "Follow me." Dylan followed her down the corridor, his eyes scanning the partially closed doors, glimpsing machines beeping softly, hearing faint, hushed voices. The distant sound of someone crying quietly sent a chill down his spine. The nurse stopped at room 412. She turned to face Dylan, her expression carefully neutral. "Your daughter came through surgery, Mr. Carter, but it was complicated. The infection had spread further than anticipated. She lost a portion of her lower intestine. She's stable now, but still critical. We have her sedated to help with the pain and give her body time to heal." Dylan's hands shook uncontrollably, but he forced the words out. But, she's alive? She's alive, and she's a fighter, Mr. Carter. The nurse affirmed, her voice softening slightly. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. She gestured toward the door. Your mother's in there with her. She's been waiting for you. Dylan could only nod, his throat closing up again. He couldn't speak. The nurse pushed open the door. The room was small, stark. One bed occupied the center, surrounded by a silent army of machines. Monitors displaying heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen levels in a gentle ebb and flow, and 4 stand with multiple bags hanging like translucent fruits, their contents dripping slowly. A soft, rhythmic beeping filled the space, the soundtrack to survival. And in the bed, so small she almost disappeared in the vast expanse of white sheets, was Emma. Dylan's breath caught in his throat, a raw, painful gasp. She looked so tiny, so terribly fragile. Tubes and wires, delicate lifelines, connected to her small body. Her face was pale, almost translucent, too pale, with faint, dark circles under her eyes. Her hair, a tangled halo, spread across the pillow. But her chest, beneath the white hospital gown, rose and fell. Steady, regular. She was breathing. His mother sat in a chair beside the bed, holding Emma's hand, her own face etched with exhaustion and worry. She looked up as Dylan entered, her eyes red-rimmed, her face crumpled, instantly mirroring his own relief and pain. Dylan! Her voice broke, a fragile whisper. Dylan crossed the room in 3 long strides, his legs almost giving way as he dropped to his knees beside the bed. He reached for Emma's other hand, so impossibly small in his calloused grip, so fragile, and pressed it to his face, inhaling the faint, clean scent of antiseptic and his daughter. I'm here, baby girl, he whispered, his voice thick with unshed tears. Daddy's here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry it took so long. Tears, hot and undeniable, poured down his face now, blurring his vision. He made no effort to stop them. His mother's hand settled gently on his shoulder, a steady, comforting weight. She kept asking for you, Dylan, she murmured, her own voice wavering. Even under sedation, the nurses said she kept saying, Daddy, over and over like she knew you were coming. I came as fast as I could. Dylan choked out, trying to explain, to justify. The bike broke down. People wouldn't help, but I found someone. And I... His voice broke completely, dissolving into a ragged sob. I tried so hard to get here. You made it. His mother squeezed his shoulder, her voice firm. That's what matters. You made it. Dylan pressed his forehead to Emma's hand, feeling the faint warmth of her skin. He just breathed, just felt her alive and warm and real beneath his touch. The door opened quietly. A doctor stepped in, a young guy in his early 30s, wearing scrubs under a white coat. He looked tired but alert, his eyes sharp. Mr. Carter? Dylan looked up, still holding Emma's hand, clinging to it like a lifeline. I'm Dr. Patel. I performed your daughter's surgery. Dylan stood slowly, his joints protesting. Is she going to be okay? Dr. Patel chose his words carefully, his expression grave. The next 24 hours are critical. The infection was extensive. We removed the appendix and a portion of compromised intestine. We've started her on aggressive antibiotic therapy. Her vitals are stable, which is encouraging. But, he paused, his gaze softening. She has a good chance. She's young, strong. Her body responded well to the surgery, but I won't lie to you, Mr. Carter. It was touch and go in there. Another hour, maybe 2, and we might have lost her. Dylan's legs went weak beneath him, a sudden, horrifying image of that loss flashing through his mind. His mother, sensing his collapse, grabbed his arm, steadying him. But you didn't lose her, Dylan said, his voice fierce, defiant. No, we didn't. Dr. Patel managed a small, tired smile. And I don't intend to. We're monitoring her closely. The next few days will tell us more. But Mr. Carter, you have a very brave little girl. She fought hard in there. She's a fighter. Just like her mother. Dylan's voice cracked, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. Get some rest, Dr. Patel advised gently. There's a parent room down the hall where you can sleep if you need to. We'll call you immediately if anything changes. I'm not leaving. Dr. Patel nodded, a look of understanding in his eyes, as if he'd expected that answer. Then make yourself comfortable. It's going to be a long night. The doctor left, the door closing softly behind him, leaving them in the hushed intimacy of the room. Dylan sank into the chair his mother had just vacated, his body protesting with every movement. She moved to the other side of the bed, sat down with a soft groan, rubbing her temples. You look terrible, she said gently, her voice full of love and concern. I feel terrible. Dylan couldn't take his eyes off Emma, couldn't tear himself away from the sight of her chest rising and falling. God, Mom, I almost didn't make it. The bike broke down and everyone turned me away because of this. He gestured to his vest, specifically to the Hell's Angels patch emblazoned on it. They saw this and they saw a criminal, not a father, not someone who desperately needed help, just a criminal. But someone helped, his mother pointed out softly. Yeah. Dylan's voice was thick again. A 14-year-old kid, Caleb Foster, fixed my bike at midnight, wouldn't take a dime for it. His voice shook with the injustice and the profound gratitude. A kid showed me more kindness in an hour than most adults showed me all night. His mother reached across the bed, her hand finding his and squeezing it. There are good people in the world, Dylan. Sometimes you just have to look harder to find them. I know. I found two tonight. Caleb and a woman named Shanice who runs a diner. She defended me when everyone else wanted me gone. Then those are two people you don't forget, his mother said simply. I won't. Dylan looked at Emma again, his heart aching with love and a fierce protectiveness. I won't ever forget them. They sat in silence, a heavy quiet broken only by the soft, rhythmic beeping and humming of the machines, and the gentle hiss of oxygen from the cannula in Emma's nose. Emma's hand was warm in Dylan's. He stroked her knuckles gently with his thumb, a silent, tender gesture. I'm here now, he whispered to her, his voice barely audible above the sounds of the room. And I'm not leaving, not ever again. You hear me, baby girl? Daddy's not going anywhere. Emma didn't respond, didn't move, just kept breathing those steady, precious breaths. But Dylan could have sworn. Maybe it was just imagination, maybe wishful thinking in his exhaustion, that her tiny fingers tightened ever so slightly around his, as if she heard him, as if she knew he was there. Dylan leaned forward, pressed his lips to her forehead, a feather-light kiss. I love you, Emma Grace, more than anything in this world. You're my whole life, so you keep fighting, okay? You keep being strong, and when you wake up, Daddy's gonna be right here. Promise. His mother, wiping fresh tears from her eyes, reached out and gently stroked his hair. She's going to make it, Dylan. I know she is. Yeah. Dylan's voice was barely a whisper, a fierce, desperate prayer. Yes, she is. Because anything else was unthinkable. Anything else was impossible. Emma had to make it. She was all he had left. Outside the window, beyond the sterile confines of the ICU, the sun was starting to rise, painting the horizon with streaks of soft pink and shimmering gold light. A new day was beginning. Dylan held his daughter's hand, watched her breathe, and for the first time in 12 hours, a fragile, tentative hope bloomed in his chest. He let himself feel it. 3 days later, Emma opened her eyes. Dylan had barely left her side, a constant, vigilant presence. He'd slept fitfully in the uncomfortable chair beside her bed, eaten bland hospital cafeteria food that tasted like cardboard, and watched every single rise and fall of her chest like his very life depended on it. When her eyelids fluttered open that third morning, a miracle unfolding before him, Dylan was holding her hand, his thumb gently stroking her knuckles. Daddy! Her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from the breathing tube they'd removed the day before. But to Dylan, it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard, a symphony of survival. I'm here, baby girl. Dylan leaned forward, careful not to jostle any of the remaining tubes and wires connected to her small body. "Daddy's right here." A weak, tired smile crossed her pale face. "You came. I knew you would." "Of course I came. Nothing could stop me." Dylan's voice cracked, thick with the emotion he still fought to control. "How are you feeling?" "Tired. My tummy hurts." "I know, sweetheart. But you're getting better. The doctors say you're doing really good." Emma's eyes, still heavy-lidded, started to close again. "Don't leave, Daddy." "I won't. I promise I'm staying right here." She fell back asleep almost immediately, her hand still clutched tightly in his, a fragile but firm anchor. Dr. Patel came by an hour later, his expression brighter than Dylan had ever seen it. He checked Emma's vitals with practiced ease, examined her incision, and then, looking at Dylan, he offered the first real smile Dylan had seen from him, a wide, genuine, hopeful smile. "She's turned a corner, Mr. Carter. The infection is responding beautifully to treatment. Her vitals are strong. Barring any unforeseen complications, she should make a full recovery." Dylan's knees went weak with overwhelming relief, a wave of exhaustion washing over him. His mother, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, burst into a fresh flood of tears, this time tears of pure joy. "Thank you," Dylan managed, his voice hoarse. "Thank you so much." Dr. Patel simply nodded. "Thank your daughter. She's tougher than most adults I treat." He made some notes on his tablet, a quiet hum filling the brief silence. "We'll probably move her out of ICU tomorrow, into a regular room. She'll need to stay with us another week or so, for observation and continued treatment, but the worst is definitely over." After the doctor left, Dylan sank back into the chair, watching Emma sleep peacefully. For what felt like the first time in days, he let himself truly breathe, a deep, cleansing breath that filled his lungs with relief. She was going to be okay. His little girl was going to be okay. That afternoon, when Emma was awake again, alert and even managing a small, tentative conversation with his mother, Dylan finally stepped out of the room. He needed to stretch his legs, needed fresh air after days confined to the sterile hospital environment, needed to see the sun. He took the elevator down to the lobby, its polished walls no longer reflecting his desperation, and walked outside into the parking lot. His bike was still there, parked crookedly near the entrance, exactly where he'd left it 3 days ago. It looked a little out of place, a relic of his desperate journey amidst the orderly hospital setting. He'd need to move it soon before security had it towed, but that could wait. Dylan pulled out his phone. Dozens of missed calls, a cascade of notifications. Texts from his club, checking on him. He'd update them later. First, he had promises to keep. He found Shanice's number in his wallet, written on the back of the receipt she'd given him, still folded carefully. He dialed. She answered on the third ring. "Mama's kitchen. This is Shanice." Her voice was warm, familiar. "Shanice, it's Dylan. Dylan Carter from the other night." A brief pause, then her voice brightened, tinged with relief and concern. "Dylan, oh my goodness. How's your daughter? Did you make it in time?" "I did. Barely." He took a moment, letting the full weight of his gratitude wash over him. "She's going to be okay. Surgery was rough, but she's recovering. She just opened her eyes this morning." "Thank God!" Shanice exclaimed, a heartfelt sigh escaping her lips. "I've been praying for her. For both of you, Dylan." "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And thank you for everything you did. The food, defending me, the recommendation for the repair shop, even though that didn't work out." "What do you mean it didn't work out?" Her tone shifted, a hint of confusion. Dylan explained everything. The sabotaged bike, the 3 shops that had turned him away, his desperation, and finally, finding Caleb at the very end of the road. On the other end of the line, Shanice made angry, frustrated sounds. "That's terrible, Dylan. I'm so sorry. I should have known Bill Benson wouldn't help. He's always been—" She stopped herself, cutting off the criticism. "Well, it doesn't matter now. You found help. That's what counts. I wanted to thank you properly, Dylan continued, a plan forming in his mind. And I want to bring Emma by when she's better. She'd love your diner. And I promised to buy her some of that pecan pie. Shanice's voice went quiet, the warmth fading. Dylan, that's sweet. But... A long pause. What's wrong? Maybe it's better if you don't come back here, she said slowly, reluctantly. Not for a while, anyway. Dylan's stomach dropped. A cold, hard knot. Did something happen? It's not. Look, it's complicated. Just maybe give it some time. Okay. Shanice. Dylan pressed, his voice firm. Tell me what happened. Another pause, then a tired sigh. People found out I served you, Dylan. That I defended you against Mrs. Patterson, and they're not happy about it. What do you mean, not happy? I mean, business has dropped off. Way off. People are staying away. And some folks have been... Her voice wavered, a hint of fear creeping in. They've been saying things, doing things. Dylan's hands clenched around the phone, his protective instincts flaring. What kind of things? It's not important. I'll handle it. Shanice. Dylan. Really. It's fine. Tell me what they did. She was quiet for a long moment, the silence heavy with unspoken trouble. When she spoke again, her voice was small, tired, defeated. Someone spray-painted the front of my building, called me a traitor, said I support criminals. Miguel found it when he came in for the morning shift yesterday. Dylan closed his eyes, a wave of profound guilt washing over him. God, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, Dylan. It is my fault. This happened because of me. No, Shanice countered, her voice gaining a little strength. This happened because people are small-minded and cruel. That's not on you. Have you called the police? And say what? That someone spray-painted my building because I served a customer they didn't like? They'll say it's just kids. Vandalism. They won't do anything. Dylan leaned heavily against his bike, his chest feeling tight, a familiar anger beginning to simmer. I'll come back. I'll help you clean it up. No. Shanice's voice was firm, unwavering. Dylan, you stay with your daughter. That's where you need to be. I can handle some spray paint, but your daughter needs you. That's what matters. Promise me you'll stay there with her. Dylan wanted to argue, wanted to get on his bike right now and roar back to that small, prejudiced town. Wanted to make this right, to protect the kind woman who had protected him. But Emma was upstairs, still weak, still recovering, still needing her father. He was torn, agonizingly so. Okay, he said finally, the word heavy with reluctance. But Shanice, I'm gonna make this right somehow. I promise you that. You already did, she said, her voice softening. You got to your daughter. That's all I wanted. She paused, and he could almost hear her smile. Now go back inside. Be with Emma. And when she's better, you send me a picture of her eating that pecan pie at home. Okay. That'll be thanks enough. You're too good, you know that. My mama raised me right, she said, a hint of her usual cheer returning. Now go. And Dylan, don't you dare feel guilty about this. You hear me? I hear you. But he did feel guilty. Deeply. As he hung up the phone and headed back inside the hospital, the guilt sat heavy in his chest, a leaden weight. Shanice had shown him kindness, true, selfless kindness, and it had cost her. Her business, her reputation, maybe even more. Dylan stopped at the hospital gift shop, bought a small notepad and a pen. He sat down in the lobby, pulling out the crumpled receipt, and carefully wrote down Shanice's address. He'd make this right. He didn't know how yet, but he would. The next day, Emma was moved to a regular room, bigger, brighter, with a large window that looked out over the sprawling city, a world away from the hushed intensity of the ICU. His mother, visibly exhausted, went home to rest, promising to return later. Dylan stayed, a fixture by Emma's bedside, helping her with her first real meal. A tiny cup of soup and a few crackers that she picked at half-heartedly, her appetite still fragile. Daddy! Emma's voice, though still soft, was stronger now, more like herself. Yeah. Baby? Why are you sad? Emma watched him with those big, perceptive eyes, too perceptive for a 7-year-old. You have your sad face. Like when you miss mommy. Dylan's throat tightened. He tried to force a smile. I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm happy. You're getting better. But you have your sad face, she insisted, her gaze unwavering. Is it because of me? Because I got sick? No, baby. Never. Dylan's heart ached. He moved to sit gently on the edge of her bed, taking her hand. You didn't do anything wrong. He paused, considering his words, knowing he couldn't lie to her, not about this. He couldn't shake the faces from his mind, images of the two people who'd offered him unconditional kindness. They were truly good people, the kind who shone brightest when everyone else had looked away. Dylan began to recount their story to Emma, choosing his words carefully. Remember Shanice at the diner? And Caleb, the one who fixed my bike? They were just so decent, Emma. So incredibly kind when everyone else had turned their backs on me. Emma listened, her small face a study in serious concentration. Her brow furrowed slightly as she absorbed his words. They sound nice, Daddy. They are nice, Emma. The best. Can we go thank them when I'm better? She asked, a hopeful light in her eyes. Dylan's smile was tinged with a deep sadness. Maybe, sweetie, but some people are mad at them right now. Mad because they helped me. Emma's frown deepened, a flash of righteous indignation crossing her features. That's not fair. No, it's not fair at all. Dylan agreed, the words a raw ache in his throat. We should do something to help them back. Felt like a small, desperate vow. Despite the familiar, oppressive heaviness in his chest, a flicker of resolve ignited within him, and he managed a genuine smile for his daughter. You're right. We should. What can we do? I don't know yet, he admitted, a plan already beginning to simmer in the back of his mind. But I'll think of something. Emma reached for his hand, her tiny fingers wrapping around his. Her unwavering belief in him was a balm to his troubled spirit. You always figure things out, Daddy. You're my superhero, remember? Dylan's vision blurred. He had to quickly look away, turning his head so she wouldn't see the tears that threatened to spill. A mix of love, gratitude, and a fierce, protective anger for those who had been wronged. 2 days later, the hospital corridors finally released Dylan, granting him permission to leave for more than just a brief, anxious walk. Emma was remarkably better, a vibrant ghost of her former self. She was sitting up in bed, happily eating a bowl of cereal, her cheeks gaining back a healthy flush, and meticulously coloring in one of the books his mother had brought. The nurses, charmed by her resilience, had dubbed her a model patient. His mother remained by her side, a steadfast guardian he trusted implicitly. Yet, a persistent, gnawing guilt clung to Dylan as he walked out to the parking lot, the weight of unresolved injustices heavy on his conscience. He had to do this. He climbed onto his bike, the familiar roar of the engine a brief comfort before the long ride ahead. The 90 miles back to that small, prejudiced town felt immeasurably longer this time, each mile dragging under the burden of his rising indignation. The air grew heavier with every turn of the wheel. Mama's kitchen was his first stop. As he pulled up, his heart immediately plummeted into the pit of his stomach. The cheerful yellow front wall was now a canvas of hate, smeared with thick, black spray paint. Words like traitor, biker lover, and far, far worse. Vile slurs Dylan recoiled from even reading, defaced the vibrant facade. The windows, thankfully, were intact, but so grimy they barely let in any light. A forlorn, closed sign hung askew on the door. But as Dylan approached, a faint movement caught his eye. Inside, a solitary figure was scrubbing at one of the tables. It was Shanice. Even through the grimy glass, he could see the weary slump of her shoulders, a picture of utter defeat. Dylan tried the door. Locked. He knocked, a sharp rap that echoed in the sudden quiet of the deserted street. Shanice looked up, startled. Her eyes, shadowed with exhaustion, widened in recognition. She rushed to the door, fumbling with the lock. Dylan, what are you doing here? Your daughter. Emma's fine, he reassured her quickly, his voice raspy. She's with my mom. I had to come. He gestured, a sweep of his hand encompassing the desecrated wall. Shanice, I'm so sorry. I told you not to come back, she said, her voice devoid of anger, just an overwhelming weariness that pierced him deeper than any accusation could have. Is the diner closed? Temporarily. Until I can get this cleaned up. And until... She trailed off, her gaze drifting to the offensive graffiti. Until what? Dylan prompted, his jaw tightening. Shanice managed a weak, heartbreaking smile. Until people forget or forgive, whichever comes first. Turns out defending a Hell's Angel is bad for business in a small town. How bad? I had 3 customers yesterday. 3 in the whole day. And 2 of them left when they saw the graffiti. Said they didn't want to support someone who harbors criminals. Dylan's fists clenched at his sides, knuckles white. You didn't harbor anyone. You served me a meal. In their eyes, it's the same thing. She shrugged, a gesture of resignation that made his blood boil. Let me help you clean this up. Dylan, please. I need to do something, Shanice. I can't let you suffer for helping me. Shanice looked at him for a long, searching moment, her tired eyes studying his resolute face. Then, a slow nod. Okay, she conceded softly. But just the cleaning. Then you go back to your daughter. They spent 2 grueling hours scrubbing. Dylan had found a can of industrial-strength paint remover at a small hardware store down the street. The owner, a man with a perpetually suspicious expression, had given Dylan a long, hard look before reluctantly selling him the supplies. The graffiti, however, was stubbornly entrenched. Some of the black paint came off, leaving ghost-like shadows. Some of it just smeared, spreading the ugliness rather than removing it. They both knew professional help would be needed to truly fix it, to restore the wall to its former cheer. When they finally stopped, utterly exhausted, the wall looked better. Not good, not by a long shot, but distinctly better. Thank you, Shanice said quietly, her voice hoarse. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did. Dylan replied, the conviction firm in his voice. They sat on the curb out front, drinking water from bottles Shanice brought out, the last rays of sunlight painting the scarred wall in hues of fading orange. I'm going to make this right, Dylan said, his gaze fixed on the lingering black marks. I don't know how yet, but I will. Shanice sighed, a sound filled with the wisdom of a lifetime of small-town realities. You can't fix small-town prejudice, Dylan. Trust me. Maybe not, he conceded, but a fire had been lit in his gut. But I can sure as hell try. After leaving Shanice, Dylan rode his bike to the edge of town, toward Foster's garage. The small, unassuming building looked even worse than he remembered. Perhaps the darkness of that fateful night had softened the edges of its decay. But now, in the unforgiving daylight, the extent of the damage was starkly evident. The front window was utterly shattered, shards of glass glinting maliciously across the cracked concrete like scattered teeth. Tools that had been carefully organized outside were now overturned, strewn haphazardly. Someone had maliciously kicked over the oil drum in the corner, leaving a viscous, black stain spreading like an ink blot across the ground. Even the hand-painted sign, Foster's Garage, had been defaced, obliterated by the same kind of hateful spray-painted words that had marred Shanice's diner. The garage door was shut, secured with a heavy, rusted padlock. Dylan dismounted his bike, the crunch of glass under his boots a stark reminder of the senseless violence. Caleb, you hear? He called out, his voice echoing in the desolate silence. No answer. He tried again, louder this time. Caleb! It's Dylan, the guy with the bike. The front door of the small, attached house next to the garage creaked open. A woman emerged, perhaps in her 40s. A black woman with eyes that spoke of profound weariness and a face carefully guarded. She wore scrubs, suggesting she was likely between shifts at some local hospital or clinic. He's not here, she stated, her voice flat and cold, unwelcoming. Are you Caleb's mom? Who's asking? Her gaze was hard, scrutinizing. My name's Dylan Carter. Your son helped me a few nights ago. Fixed my bike so I could get to my daughter. A subtle softening occurred around her tired eyes, a flicker of something akin to recognition, or perhaps a flicker of the kindness he knew Caleb possessed. Caleb told me about you. She looked past Dylan, her eyes sweeping over the devastation. The broken window, the vulgar graffiti, the scattered, ruined tools. What happened here? Some boys from town came by 2 nights ago, she explained, her voice gaining a sharp, barely controlled edge of anger. Said we had no business helping criminals. Said bikers and their sympathizers weren't welcome here. Her voice began to shake, the raw emotion breaking through her guarded exterior. They broke our window, destroyed equipment we can't afford to replace, spray painted our sign. Did you call the police? Dylan asked, his voice tight with suppressed fury. She let out a bitter, humorless laugh. Police came by, took a report, said there wasn't much they could do without witnesses. Said it was probably just kids being stupid. They left. Haven't heard from them since. Dylan's jaw clenched so hard it ached. The injustice burned. Where's Caleb now? School. I didn't tell him you were here because I don't want him getting any more involved with. She stopped herself, a deep sigh escaping her lips. Look, I'm grateful you came by to check on us. That's kind. But maybe it's better if you don't come back. This town doesn't forgive easily. And every time someone sees your bike here, it just makes things worse for us. I'm going to fix this, Dylan stated, his resolve unyielding. She wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture of deep, inherent defeat. You can't fix this. This is how things are here, how they've always been. Now, I need to get to work and you need to go back to your daughter. Caleb said she was in the hospital. She's recovering. She's going to be okay. Then go be with her. That's where you belong. She turned to go back inside, her hand on the doorknob, then paused, looking back at him. Her eyes, though still tired, held a surprising depth of sincerity. And Mr. Carter, don't feel guilty about this. Caleb doesn't regret helping you. Neither do I. That boy has the biggest heart of anyone I know. I'm proud he helped someone in need. I just wish the world was kinder to people who do the right thing. With that, she went inside, the door closing softly behind her, leaving Dylan standing alone amidst the wreckage. He stood there, a silent sentinel, staring at the broken window, the hateful graffiti, the scattered, ruined tools. 2 people had shown him pure, unadulterated kindness when the rest of the world had slammed its doors in his face. 2 people, a struggling diner owner and a selfless teenage mechanic, and now, they were both paying a heavy, unfair price for their compassion. Dylan pulled out his phone, his thumb moving swiftly through his contacts until he found Marcus's number. The call connected, and Marcus's familiar, booming voice filled his ear. Dylan, brother. How's Emma? She's good, Marcus. Recovering. Listen, I need to talk to the club. All of them. Can you set up a meeting? There was a brief pause on the other end, Marcus sensing the gravity in Dylan's tone. Sure, man. What's going on? Dylan looked around again at the decimated garage, the stark evidence of hatred, ignorance, and cruelty. A cold, hard resolve settled in his chest. I need help, he said, his voice low and firm. And I need a lot of it. You got it. Whatever you need. Just name it. Soon, Dylan said, his eyes scanning the damage, a dangerous spark igniting within them. Real soon? I need to make something right. Consider it done. Dylan hung up, took one last, lingering look at Foster's garage, the scene of such profound injustice. Then he got on his bike, the engine roaring to life, and headed back to the hospital, back to Emma. But the ride was different now. A plan, intricate and audacious, was rapidly forming in his mind. A powerful way to repay the kindness he'd received. A way to show that small, prejudiced town just how monumentally they'd miscalculated. They'd hurt the wrong people, and the Hell's Angels, above all else, took care of their own. Even if their own was a resilient young woman running a diner and a 14-year-old kid who fixed bikes under the cover of darkness. 2 weeks later, the day Emma finally came home was drenched in sunlight and relief. Dylan carried her up the steps to their small apartment, even though the doctor had assured him she was strong enough to walk on her own. She wrapped her slender arms around his neck, burying her face into his shoulder, a soft sigh escaping her lips. Home, she whispered, the single word brimming with a fragile, beautiful comfort. Home, Dylan agreed, his own voice thick with emotion. His mother, a tireless whirlwind of love and care, had already transformed the apartment. The air hummed with freshness. The fridge was stocked with Emma's favorite snacks, and a vase of cheerful, fresh flowers brightened the kitchen table. She enveloped them both in a fierce, tearful embrace the moment they stepped through the door. My babies, both home safe. Emma spent that first glorious day on the couch, cocooned in blankets, lost in the vibrant world of her favorite cartoons. Dylan sat beside her, simply watching, still hardly daring to believe she was truly okay, that he hadn't lost her to the abyss of sickness. That night, after Emma was finally asleep in her bed and his mother had quietly departed, Dylan made the call. "Marcus," he said, his voice low and steady. "It's time. Say when and where, brother." "This Saturday. That small town I told you about. The one where they helped me. We'll be there. How many you want?" Dylan closed his eyes, picturing Shanice's graffiti-scarred diner, Caleb's shattered window, and the venomous hate that had festered in that town. He took a deep breath. "All of them. Everyone who can ride. I want to make a statement." "You got it." The words spread through the club like wildfire, carried on the invisible currents of loyalty and brotherhood. Dylan Carter needed his brothers and sisters. And when a brother called, you answered, no questions asked. By Friday night, the clubhouse, nestled 50 miles from the small town, was a buzzing hive of activity. Bikers were rolling in from 3 different states, their machines converging like a metal-clad army. The parking lot quickly filled with motorcycles, gleaming chrome under the stark club lights. The air grew thick with the resonant rumble of idling engines, the intoxicating smell of exhaust fumes, and the comforting scent of worn leather. Dylan stood on the clubhouse steps, a silent, commanding figure, and looked out at his assembled family. 200 men and women in their leather vests, the fearsome Hell's Angels patches emblazoned proudly on their backs. Some he'd known for years, weathered comrades through countless storms. Others, he'd never met, strangers bound by an unbreakable code. Yet they had all come for him. Marcus climbed up beside him, a triumphant grin on his face. "That's not even half. More coming in the morning." "How many total?" Dylan asked, a tremor in his voice he barely managed to suppress. "Last count 800. Maybe more." Dylan's breath caught in his throat. 800. He'd realistically expected maybe 200, 300 if he was lucky. But 800 bikers, his brothers and sisters, were coming to help him. Brothers. Dylan's voice, raw and powerful, carried across the parking lot, silencing the rumble of engines and the low hum of conversation. Sisters. Thank you for coming. Thank you for answering the call. The crowd quieted, a wave of anticipation washing over them. "Most of you know what happened," Dylan continued, his voice growing stronger, imbued with a fierce conviction. "My daughter got sick. I rode through the night to get to her. My bike broke down in a small town. Everyone turned me away. Everyone except 2 people. A woman named Shanice, who runs a diner. She fed me when I was starving, defended me when people called me a criminal. And a kid named Caleb, 14 years old, who fixed my bike at midnight and wouldn't take a dime for it." Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd, a low, sympathetic hum. "Those 2 people showed me kindness when no one else would. They helped me get to my daughter in time. They might have saved her life." Dylan paused, the silence heavy with the unspoken gravity of his words. "And now they're paying for it. The town turned on them, vandalized their businesses, drove away their customers. All because they helped me." The murmurs intensified, shifting from sympathy to a rising tide of angry voices, a dangerous, unified growl. "So, tomorrow," Dylan continued, his voice cutting through the rising din, clear and resolute. "We're going back. All of us. And we're going to show that town what the Hell's Angels really are. We're going to fix what they broke. We're going to clean what they dirted. We're going to remind them that kindness shouldn't be punished." A woman in the front row, her face etched with fierce determination, raised her fist. "Hell yeah!" The crowd erupted, a thunderous chorus of cheers, whistles, and the earth-shaking revving of engines. Marcus, standing beside Dylan, grinned, a flash of pure satisfaction in his eyes. "Looks like you got yourself an army, brother. Let's hope we don't scare them too much." Dylan's own grin was sharp, dangerous. "Oh, we'll scare them, all right, but then we'll show them what we're really about." That night, the clubhouse buzzed with purpose. The club leadership meticulously made plans, organizing into specialized teams. Some would handle the heavy repairs, others the detailed cleaning, and still others would take charge of the decorations. Marcus, ever the strategist, had already called ahead to various suppliers, ensuring they'd have paint, tools, and all the necessary materials. This wasn't going to be a quick patch job. This was going to be a complete transformation, a powerful statement. And, with a stroke of inspired genius, they decided it would all happen on Halloween. The whole town, whether they liked it or not, would bear witness to it. Saturday morning, Dylan woke up at 5 a.m., his mind a restless current of anxiety, excitement, and nerves. Sleep had been an elusive dream. Emma was still sound asleep, her small chest rising and falling gently. His mother, bless her steadfast heart, would stay with her for the day, ensuring she was safe, happy, and well cared for. Dylan leaned over, planting a soft kiss on his daughter's forehead. "Love you, baby girl. Daddy's got something important to do today." She mumbled something indistinguishable in her sleep, a faint smile gracing her lips, but didn't wake. Dylan met the club at their designated meeting point just outside the town limits. The sun was barely a promise on the horizon, the air cold and crisp, biting at his exposed skin. The road, as far as Dylan could see in both directions, was an astonishing tapestry of chrome and leather. Bikers, hundreds of them, maybe even more than the reported 800, were lined up, their machines a silent, formidable army. The low rumble of their idling engines was like distant thunder, a prelude to the storm. Marcus pulled up beside Dylan, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Ready? Let's do this," Dylan replied, a quiet intensity in his voice. Marcus raised his hand, holding it high in the air, the signal. Then, with a decisive drop, the command was given. 800 motorcycles roared to life, a deafening, overwhelming symphony of power that vibrated through the very ground beneath their feet. They rode into the small town, a gleaming river of chrome and leather, engines thundering, down Main Street. People emerged from their houses, drawn by the incredible noise, standing on their porches like startled statues. Their faces reflected a spectrum of emotions. Some looked utterly terrified, wide-eyed with open mouths. Some were etched with anger, resentment. Others simply appeared bewildered, unable to comprehend the scale of the invasion. The motorcycles filled the street, packed the town center, completely surrounding Mama's kitchen and Foster's garage. Then, as one, with an almost supernatural precision, they all shut off their engines. A profound silence descended, heavy and absolute, broken only by the rapid thumping of Dylan's own heart. He swung off his bike, planting his feet firmly in the middle of the street, 800 silent bikers forming an intimidating wall behind him. The townspeople continued to stare, transfixed. An old man, the same one from the diner with the cane who had been so quick to judge him, shouted from his porch, his voice cracking with fear and outrage. "What do you want? Are you here to riot? To destroy our town?" Dylan walked forward, stopping squarely in the middle of the street where every single person could see him, his presence radiating an unexpected calm authority. "We're here to fix it," he called back, his voice clear and resonant. A ripple of confusion spread through the crowd of onlookers, their expressions shifting from fear to bewilderment. Dylan gestured to his brothers and sisters, a sweeping motion that encompassed the entire formidable assembly behind him. "These people behind me," he announced, his voice carrying conviction. "They're here to repair the damage you did, to clean up your mess, to show you what kindness really looks like." He turned to Marcus, giving a subtle nod. Marcus, understanding the cue, let out a powerful shout that echoed through the quiet street. "All right, people, you know what to do. Let's make this town beautiful." And then, as if a dam had burst, the bikers went to work. Half of the formidable force descended upon Mama's kitchen, their movements surprisingly coordinated and purposeful. They brought out buckets of paint in beautiful, vibrant colors, a stark contrast to the grim black graffiti. Brushes, rollers, even scaffolding appeared as if by magic. Within minutes, they were systematically covering the hateful graffiti, transforming the ugly black spray paint into a canvas of hopeful new beginnings. Others swarmed Foster's garage, working with incredible efficiency. A new window was expertly installed, replacing the shattered pane. Broken tools were carefully replaced with shiny new ones. The pervasive oil stain on the concrete was meticulously scrubbed away, and the defaced sign was lovingly repainted. But they didn't stop there. As if a festive spirit had overtaken them, some bikers began hanging Halloween decorations, bright orange and black streamers, grinning plastic skeletons, intricately carved pumpkins, and whimsical fake spiderwebs. They adorned the diner, the garage, the very street itself, and even the telephone poles. The entire town center was undergoing a stunning, unexpected transformation. The townspeople watched in stunned silence, their initial fear slowly giving way to bewildered curiosity. From one house, Mrs. Patterson, the same woman who had falsely accused Dylan of theft, emerged onto her porch. Her mouth hung open, agape, as she watched burly bikers carefully stringing Halloween lights across the buildings, their tattoos a surprising counterpoint to the festive glow. Dylan walked over to Mama's kitchen. Shanice stood in the doorway, her hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face, a mix of disbelief and overwhelming emotion. "Dylan," she whispered, her voice choked. "What did you do?" "I brought some friends to help," he said simply, a gentle smile on his face. "Some friends?" She gestured with a trembling hand at the army of bikers, now a bustling, vibrant workforce. This is insane. You helped me when no one else would, Shanice. This is me returning the favor." A biker, his arms a tapestry of intricate tattoos, walked past carrying a can of bright yellow paint. Another followed with a vibrant orange. They were carefully painting a mural of a sunrise and fields of golden wheat on the wall where the graffiti had been, covering the hate with something truly beautiful and hopeful. Shanice pressed her hands tighter to her mouth, sobs racking her slender frame. Dylan moved down the street to Foster's garage. Caleb stood outside, his eyes wide, almost comically huge, watching the bikers meticulously replace his broken window. "Mr. Dylan," his voice cracked with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Is this real?" "It's real, kid. You helped me. Now we're helping you. But there's so many of them. That's what family does, Caleb. They show up." Dylan put a firm, reassuring hand on Caleb's shoulder. "You're part of that family now. You helped one of us. That makes you one of us." Caleb's mother emerged from the house, still in her scrubs from her night shift, her face a mask of profound bewilderment. She looked from the tireless bikers to the remarkable work being done, and then back to Dylan, her eyes searching for answers. "I don't understand," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Your son showed me kindness. The club doesn't forget that. We take care of our own, and that includes people who take care of us." She started crying then, big, silent tears rolling down her face. Dylan, uncharacteristically, didn't know what to say, so he simply stood there while Caleb, sensing his mother's deep emotion, wrapped his arms around her in a comforting embrace. All around them, the transformation continued with a relentless, joyful energy. A burly biker with a handlebar mustache and arms completely covered in tattoos carefully painted a smiling jack-o'-lantern on the diner window, his tongue sticking out in the intense concentration of a true artist. A group of local kids had gathered, their initial shyness replaced by wide-eyed wonder, pointing and giggling at the unexpected spectacle. Another biker, a woman with bright purple hair woven into a thick braid, was expertly stringing lights across the street. She called down to the children, her voice warm and inviting. "Hey, you guys want to help?" The kids looked hesitantly at their parents. The parents, still nervous but undeniably intrigued, slowly nodded. Soon, children were scurrying around, clutching decorations, their laughter mixing with the rumble of tools, enthusiastically helping the bikers adorn their very own town. An elderly woman, her back slightly hunched, approached Dylan carefully, her eyes still clouded with confusion. "I don't understand what's happening." "We're fixing what got broken, ma'am," Dylan explained gently, his voice respectful. "Making things right. But why after how we treated you?" She looked at him, truly looked at him, her gaze genuinely bewildered, seeking an explanation beyond her limited understanding. "Because that's what good people do," he said simply, the truth of it resonating in the now festive air. "They help. Even when it's hard, even when others don't deserve it." The woman's eyes filled with tears, a silent testament to the impact of his words. She nodded, a profound understanding finally dawning, and then slowly walked away. By noon, the transformation was nothing short of stunning. Mama's kitchen looked brand new, vibrant and inviting. The walls were painted in warm, welcoming colors, sun-kissed yellows and cheerful oranges that made the building glow in the sunlight, radiating an unexpected warmth. The ugly graffiti was completely gone, replaced by the beautiful mural of a sunrise over golden fields of wheat, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Halloween decorations now adorned the roof and windows, whimsical and bright. Foster's garage boasted a sparkling new window, a freshly painted sign proclaiming its name, and clean, repaired pavement. Bikers had added festive touches there too, with pumpkins lined up along the front and fake bats playfully hanging from the eaves. But the bikers hadn't stopped at just those two buildings. With an infectious energy, they had decorated the entire town center. Every telephone pole was festooned with orange streamers. Every storefront proudly displayed pumpkins, skeletons, or twinkling lights. Main Street now resembled a vibrant Halloween festival, bustling with life and color. And the townspeople, initially hesitant, had slowly, tentatively begun to help. A few individuals cautiously brought out thermoses of hot coffee for the hardworking bikers. Someone else donated more pumpkins from their garden. The hardware store owner, his earlier suspicion replaced by a newfound enthusiasm, brought out extra decorations from his stock. Then more people joined in, helping to hang lights, paint, and decorate. The palpable fear that had hung over the town was steadily fading, being replaced by something else entirely. Wonder, gratitude, perhaps even a touch of shame for their past actions. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the monumental work was done. Dylan stood in the middle of Main Street, taking in the magnificent tableau they had created. It was truly beautiful. The entire town glowed with a magical Halloween spirit. Shanice emerged from her diner, carrying a large tray laden with dozens of slices of pecan pie, the sweet aroma wafting through the air. "I don't have enough to feed everyone," she called out, a joyous laugh escaping her lips. "But I wanted to give you something to say thank you." The bikers cheered, forming an orderly line, a polite ripple of appreciation running through the formidable crowd. Each took a small, perfectly cut slice of pie, thanked Shanice, and found a place to sit on curbs, leaning against newly painted buildings, or simply on the fresh, clean pavement. Dylan watched his brothers and sisters, sharing pie and laughter, their rough exteriors softening in the afternoon sun. He watched the townspeople, tentatively at first, then more openly, mingling with the bikers, talking, slowly realizing that these dangerous criminals were, in fact, just people. Caleb walked up with his mother, his eyes still wide with awe. "Mr. Dylan, can I ask you something?" "Anything, kid. Why did you do all this?" "You didn't have to." Dylan crouched down to Caleb's level, meeting his gaze directly. "You fixed my bike when I needed it most, Caleb. You did it without hesitation, without judgment. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped them." He glanced at Caleb's mother, a respectful nod. "Your mama raised you to be a good person. The club wanted to show you that being good isn't a weakness. It's the strongest thing you can be." Caleb's mother squeezed her son's shoulder, tears welling in her eyes once more. But these were tears of profound gratitude. "Thank you," she said to Dylan, her voice thick with emotion, "for showing him that kindness is worth it. Thank you for raising a kid who already knew that." As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery hues, the bikers began preparing to leave. They would be back tomorrow for the actual Halloween celebration, but for now, their mission was accomplished. Dylan stood with Marcus, surveying the transformed town, a deep satisfaction settling in his chest. "We did good today, brother," Marcus said, a proud smile on his face. Yeah, we did. Think they learned anything?" Dylan watched a group of kids, now unafraid, playing with plastic skeletons while their parents chatted amicably with bikers. He saw Mrs. Patterson, her face blotchy from crying, apologizing profusely to Shanice, even hugging her. He watched the old man with the cane, the one who had shouted at them, now shaking hands with a biker covered in tattoos, a genuine smile on his face. "I think maybe they did," Dylan said, a quiet hope in his voice. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture of deep camaraderie. "Your kid's going to be so proud when you tell her about this." "I hope so. Trust me, you just showed her that when people do wrong, you don't match their hate. You answer it with something better." Marcus grinned. "That's a hell of a lesson." Dylan pulled out his phone, quickly texting his mother. "How's Emma?" The response came immediately. "Perfect. Asking about you. When will you be home?" Dylan typed back. "Soon. Tell her daddy loves her and that he did something good today." The bikers fired up their engines. The mighty rumble filled the air once again, a familiar roar. But this time, the townspeople didn't look afraid. They waved, they smiled, and some even cheered, their voices mingling with the thunderous engines. 800 motorcycles rolled out of town, a majestic procession, heading back to their lives, back to their families. But they had left something profound behind. A powerful, unforgettable reminder that kindness matters, that helping others is never wrong, and that sometimes, the very people you fear are the ones who will ultimately save you. Dylan was the last to leave. He took one more look at Mama's kitchen, gleaming in the fading sunlight, at Foster's garage, restored and festively decorated. He looked at the town that had rejected him, now transformed, brimming with an unexpected warmth. Then, he kicked his bike into gear and headed home to Emma, eager to tell her about the day 800 bikers reminded a small town what it truly meant to be human. Halloween night arrived, crisp and vibrant. Dylan helped Emma into her costume, a bright red superhero cape with a gleaming gold star on the back. A gift he'd bought at the hospital gift shop. She had insisted on it. "Because you're my superhero, Daddy," she declared with unwavering conviction. "So I want to be one too." Now, she stood in front of the mirror, her new cape flowing majestically behind her, a wide, triumphant grin plastered across her reflection. The incision on her side was healing beautifully, a faint pink line. She still tired easily, but the healthy color had returned to her cheeks, and the bright, mischievous light had rekindled in her eyes. "How do I look?" she asked, striking a dramatic pose. "Like the strongest superhero I've ever seen," Dylan said, his throat tightening with an overwhelming surge of love and relief. His mother emerged from the kitchen, carrying Emma's candy bucket, a cheerful plastic pumpkin adorned with glitter. "Are you sure you're up for this, sweetie? We can just stay home and hand out candy." "Grandma, I've been stuck inside forever," Emma exclaimed, grabbing the bucket with eager hands. "I want to go trick-or-treating." Dylan knelt down, meticulously adjusting her cape, securing it just right. "We'll take it slow, okay? And if you get tired, you tell me right away." "I promise." Just then, Dylan's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Town's packed. You should see this. Bring Emma." Dylan looked at his mother. She was already smiling, a knowing, approving look on her face. "Go," she said, her voice warm. "I'll stay here and give out candy. You two go have an adventure." 20 minutes later, Dylan pulled his bike into the small town. Emma sat in front of him, her arms wrapped tightly around his waist, her superhero cape flapping heroically in the wind. He'd made sure she had a thick jacket beneath the cape. He couldn't risk her getting cold. The town was utterly transformed, not just by the festive decorations from yesterday, but by the people themselves. Main Street was packed, a vibrant river of humanity. Families were everywhere, Kids in an endless array of costumes darting from house to house, their excited shrieks echoing through the air. Parents chatted on sidewalks, laughter mingling with the strains of music playing from speakers someone had set up. The whole town had turned into a Halloween festival. And in the middle of it all were bikers. Not 800 this time, maybe 100. They'd come back for the celebration. Some were handing out candy from their motorcycles. Some were helping kids with their costumes. Some were just standing around talking to townspeople like old friends. Dylan parked his bike near Mama's kitchen. The diner glowed with warm light. Through the windows, he could see it was packed with customers. Shanice stood outside greeting people as they came and went. When she saw Dylan, her whole face lit up. "You came." She rushed over, then stopped when she saw Emma. "Oh my goodness. Is this your daughter?" Emma nodded shyly, hiding partly behind Dylan's leg. "Emma, this is Shanice. She's the one I told you about. The one who helped Daddy." Emma peeked out. "Thank you for helping my daddy." Shanice crouched down, her eyes shining. "Sweetie, you don't need to thank me. Your daddy needed to get to you, and I was just happy to help." She touched Emma's cape. "I love your costume. Are you a superhero? Just like my daddy?" Shanice looked up at Dylan, tears in her eyes. "She's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. She's my whole world. I can see that." Shanice stood up, wiping her eyes. "Come inside. I saved you both a table. And Emma, I have something special for you." The diner was loud and warm and full. Every booth was occupied. Every stool at the counter taken. People laughed and ate and celebrated. And nobody stared at Dylan's vest. Nobody whispered. Nobody looked afraid. A few people even nodded at him, smiled. One man, Bill Benson from the auto shop, actually stood up and walked over. "Dylan Carter." Bill's voice was gruff but not hostile. Dylan tensed. "Yeah, I owe you an apology. What I said, how I treated you." Bill shook his head. "There's no excuse. You needed help and I turned you away because I was too busy judging to see a father trying to get to his sick kid." He held out his hand. "I'm sorry." Dylan looked at the offered hand at Bill's face. The man looked genuinely ashamed. Dylan shook his hand. "Apology accepted. If you ever need work done on your bike, you come see me. No charge. It's the least I can do." After Bill left, Shanice showed them to a corner booth. She brought out 2 slices of pecan pie. One for Emma, one for Dylan. "On the house," she said. "As promised." Emma took a bite and her eyes went wide. "This is so good. My mama's recipe. She made it better than anyone." Shanice smiled. "Your daddy told me you might like it." They ate their pie while the diner buzzed with life around them. Dylan watched Emma's face light up with every bite. Watched her look around at the decorations, at the happy families, at the bikers mingling with townspeople. This was what he'd fought for. This moment, his daughter, healthy and happy, eating pie in a warm diner, safe and loved. After they finished, Dylan took Emma outside. The street was even more crowded now. Kids running everywhere in costumes. Witches and vampires and princesses and ghosts. "Can I go trick-or-treating?" Emma asked. "Of course. That's why we're here." They made their way down Main Street. At every house, at every store, people welcomed them. Dropped candy in Emma's bucket. Complimented her cape. Some recognized Dylan from yesterday. Thanked him. Thanked the club. One older woman stopped them. The same woman who'd asked Dylan why they were helping. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for what you did yesterday. For showing us," her voice caught, "for showing us what we should have been all along." Dylan just nodded. Didn't know what to say to that. They found Foster's garage. Caleb was outside with his mother handing out candy to trick-or-treaters. When he saw Dylan and Emma, he whooped. "Mr. Dylan, you came back. Told you I would." "Caleb, this is Emma." "Emma, this is the young man who fixed Daddy's bike." Emma looked up at Caleb with huge eyes. "You helped my daddy get to me." "Sure did. Your dad's bike was pretty messed up, but we got her running again." "Thank you." Emma's voice was small but sincere. "I was really scared, and then Daddy came and I wasn't scared anymore." Caleb's mother put her hand over her heart. Dylan saw tears in her eyes. "You're welcome, Emma." Caleb grinned. Hey, you want to see something cool? He led them into the garage. The new window gleamed. The tools were all organized on new shelves. And in the corner sat a motorcycle, not Dylan's. A different one. It's mine, Caleb said proudly. Well, it will be when I'm old enough to ride it. I've been rebuilding it for 2 years. Your dad's club brothers helped me finish it yesterday. They brought parts, showed me some tricks. It's almost done now. Dylan looked at the bike. It was beautiful. Classic lines, clean work. You did this yourself. Most of it. Dad taught me the basics before he died. I've been learning the rest as I go. Caleb ran his hand over the seat. When I get my license, this will be my ride. You're going to be a hell of a mechanic, kid. I already am. Caleb grinned. But I'm going to be even better. They stayed for a while. Caleb showing Emma the bike, explaining how engines worked. Emma listened fascinated, asking questions. Caleb answered each one patiently. Dylan stood with Caleb's mother. Thank you, she said quietly, for what you did, for what your club did. Before yesterday, we were thinking about leaving, moving somewhere else, somewhere we wouldn't be punished for helping people. She watched her son with Emma. But now I think we might stay. The town's changed. Or maybe we just reminded them who they used to be. You raised a good kid. I raised a kind kid. That's more important than good. She smiled. And you raised a strong daughter. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. When they finally left the garage, Marcus found them. He had a little girl with him, maybe 5 years old, dressed as a princess. Dylan, this is my daughter Sophia. Sophia, this is Uncle Dylan and his daughter Emma. The two girls looked at each other shyly. I like your cape, Sophia said. I like your crown, Emma replied. Want to trick or treat together? Sophia asked. Emma looked up at Dylan. He nodded. The girls took off together, comparing candy buckets, chattering away. Marcus and Dylan followed a few steps behind. Your kid looks good, Marcus said. Real good. She's getting there. Doctor says full recovery in another month or so. That's great, brother. Really great. Marcus watched the girls. What we did yesterday, that meant something. Not just to this town, to the club. Reminded us what we're about. What are we about? Family loyalty. Taking care of our own. Marcus grinned. And apparently decorating for Halloween. Dylan laughed. Actually laughed. Felt good. They walked through the town watching their daughters collect candy. Listening to their laughter. More bikers joined them, more kids. Soon there was a whole group of families moving together, bikers and townspeople all mixed together. Mrs. Patterson appeared on her porch. She looked nervous but determined. Mr. Carter, could I speak with you for a moment? Dylan nodded to Marcus to keep an eye on Emma, then walked up to the porch. Mrs. Patterson twisted her hands together. I wanted to apologize properly. What I did, accusing you like that, it was wrong. It was cruel. I was so sure I was right. So sure someone like you had to be a criminal that I didn't see the truth. What truth is that? That you were just a father trying to get to his sick child. That's all. And I tried to stop you. I could have. Her voice broke. If your bike hadn't gotten fixed, if you hadn't made it in time. But I did make it. Emma's fine because good people helped you in spite of people like me. Mrs. Patterson wiped her eyes. I'm ashamed. Deeply ashamed. And I wanted you to know that. Wanted you to know that what you did yesterday, bringing your club here, fixing what we broke, it changed me, changed a lot of us. Dylan looked at her. Really looked at her. Saw genuine remorse, genuine shame. We all make mistakes, he said finally. What matters is what we do after. I'm going to do better. I promise I'm going to judge people by their actions, not their appearance. Dylan nodded. That's all anyone can ask. As the night went on, more people approached Dylan. More apologies, more thanks, more stories about how yesterday had changed their perspective. The old man with the cane shuffled up. I was wrong about you, he said simply. I'm too old to be wrong about much anymore, but I was wrong about you. It happens. No excuse for it, though. The old man looked around at the celebration. This is the best Halloween this town's had in 50 years, and it's because of you and your people. Thank you. By 8 o'clock, Emma was yawning. Her candy bucket was full. Her steps were getting slower. Time to go home, baby girl? Dylan asked. Can we come back next year? Dylan looked at Shanice standing in front of her packed diner, at Caleb teaching a group of kids about motorcycles, at the bikers and townsfolk talking and laughing together. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I think we can. They said their goodbyes. Shanice hugged Emma, made her promise to come back soon. Caleb gave her a small wrench as a souvenir. Every superhero needs tools, he said with a grin. Marcus walked them to Dylan's bike. Sophia had fallen asleep on his shoulder. You did good, brother, Marcus said. Real good. We all did. Next year we're doing this bigger. Maybe make it a club tradition. Find people who need help. Show up on Halloween and make some magic happen. Dylan smiled. I'd like that. He helped Emma onto the bike. She wrapped her arms around him, her head resting against his back. As they rode out of town, Dylan looked in his mirror. The town was still glowing, still celebrating, still transformed. Not just by decorations, but by understanding, by acceptance, by the simple realization that kindness was stronger than fear. Emma's voice was sleepy against his back. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Today was the best Halloween ever. It was pretty good, wasn't it? You really are a superhero. You made everyone happy. Dylan's eyes burned. No, baby. I just reminded them how to be good to each other. They did the rest. Will you always be my superhero? Dylan's hand covered hers where it rested against his stomach. Always. Forever, no matter what. Promise. I promise. They rode home through the night. The moon was full and bright. The air was cold, but not uncomfortable. Emma's weight against his back was the best feeling in the world. When they got home, his mother met them at the door. Dylan carried Emma inside. She was already half asleep. He tucked her into bed. Cape still on because she refused to take it off. Kissed her forehead. Love you, Daddy, she murmured. Love you too, baby girl. More than anything. She was asleep before he reached the door. Dylan stood in the hallway looking at his sleeping daughter, thinking about everything that had happened. The desperate ride, the rejection, the kindness from strangers, the rally of his brothers and sisters, the transformation of a town. All of it leading to this moment. His daughter safe and healthy, sleeping peacefully in her own bed. His mother came up beside him. You did good, son. I just did what any father would do. No, you did more than that. You showed that little girl and a whole town that meeting hate with kindness is the bravest thing you can do. She squeezed his shoulder. Your father would be proud. And Rachel. Her voice caught. Rachel would be so proud of the man you've become, the father you are. Dylan's vision blurred. I hope so. They stood there together in the quiet hallway, watching Emma sleep. Outside, Halloween night was winding down. Kids were going home with their candy. Decorations were being taken down. The celebration was ending. But something had changed. Something fundamental and important. A town had learned to see past appearances, to judge by actions instead of assumptions. A community had come together. Bikers and townsfolk, different worlds colliding and finding common ground. And a little girl had her father back, safe and whole, and more committed than ever to being the hero she believed him to be. Dylan's phone buzzed. A text from Shanice. Thank you for bringing Emma. She's adorable. Come back anytime. You're always welcome at Mama's kitchen. Another text from Caleb. Emma's awesome. When she's older, I'll teach her about bikes. Every superhero needs to know how to fix things. And one from Marcus. Same time next year, brother. Let's make this a tradition. Hell's Angels Halloween. I like the sound of that. Dylan smiled. He typed back to all three. Count on it. He looked at Emma one more time, her chest rising and falling. Her small hand curled around the edge of her blanket. The superhero cape spread out beneath her. His whole world, his reason for everything. Good night, baby girl, he whispered. Sweet dreams. Daddy's here. Daddy's always here. And he was, and he would be, for every nightmare, every scraped knee, every broken heart, every triumph, every moment of her life. Because that's what fathers do, what heroes do. They show up, they stay, they love no matter what. Dylan closed the door quietly and walked to his own room. Tomorrow he'd call the club, thank them properly, start planning for next year. Tomorrow he'd take Emma to see the doctor for her follow-up. Tomorrow he'd start figuring out how to be the father, the hero she deserved. But tonight he just let himself feel grateful for second chances. For kind strangers, for a daughter who survived, for brothers and sisters who answered the call, for a small town that learned to see past fear. For all of it, Dylan lay down on his bed, still in his clothes, too tired to change. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, maybe years, he fell asleep with a smile on his face. Because sometimes, when everything seems darkest, when the whole world seems against you, when hope feels impossible, sometimes kindness wins. Sometimes people surprise you. Sometimes 800 bikers on motorcycles can change hearts and minds and transform hate into something beautiful. Sometimes miracles happen. And sometimes, just sometimes, the story ends exactly the way it should, with a little girl safe in her bed, with a father who would move mountains for her. And with the understanding that, in the end, we're all just people trying to do right by each other, one act of kindness at a time. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.